institutions, legal bodies, and lobby groups, civil society organizations come together to work against corruption and promoting ideas that will build on based on what we have done in the past. So we're starting this program as Nigerians naturally with the national anthem. So due to so many things that have happened, the COVID-19, unfortunately, we have to have this program online. This is away from the norm, where we normally have it in a normal hall and we get to engage ourselves. But this is a new normal and we have to get used to it until the thing is resolved. So we'll start with the national anthem. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to welcome our distinguished guests. I can see the acting chairman, Mr. Mohammed Umar. You are welcome, sir. I can see Dr. Oji Obona. You are welcome, sir. Is Mr. Oliver online of the UNODC?
Yes, I'm here, Umar. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Yes, yeah, so just as I would like us to move on, as more guests are coming in, I'll be introducing the participants. So I would like to invite Tuga for the welcome address. Ms. Lillian, sorry, Madam Jane, are you there for the welcome address, please?
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I'm Jane Omere. I work for the Technical Unit on Governance and Anti-Corruption Reforms. On behalf of the IATT this morning, the Interagency Task Team of Anti-Corruption Agencies, I welcome you to the high-level seminar in commemoration of the International Anti-Corruption Day 2020. The theme of this year is Recover with Integrity, focused on the fight against corruption during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. The objectives of commemorating the International Anti-Corruption Day is to create public awareness about the negative effects of corruption and the need to prevent and fight it. Also, it's an opportunity for us to recommit to collective action in preventing and addressing corruption as we reflect on the devastating consequences of the COVID-19 this year on governance, institutions, the economy, and the society. It's important to note that this high-level seminar is organized by the Interagency Task Team of Anti-Corruption Agencies, made up of 23 government agencies. Please permit me to list out the agencies that make up the Interagency Task Team. It's the Bureau of Public Service Reforms, the Bureau of Public Procurement, the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Code of Conduct Bureau, the Corporate Affairs Commission, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the Federal Ministry of Finance, the Federal Ministry of Justice, Fiscal Responsibility Commission, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We have the National Agency for Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons and Other Related Matters, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, the Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit, National Human Rights Commission, the Nigeria Police Force, Office of the Auditor General of the Federation, Public Complaints Commission, the Special Control Unit Against Money Laundering, and the Technical Unit on Governance and Anti-Corruption Reforms, which serves as the IAT. This year, beyond the high-level seminar, the youths have also been involved in the whole process. Excuse me. We organized a poetry competition between secondary schools around Abuja, and we believe that it's important to catch the young ones young. We need them in the fight against corruption. They are the future of the nation. As such, we'll be highlighting some of the poems that actually came first place, both in the junior and senior categories of the poetry competition. So once again, on behalf of the Interagency Task Team, we welcome you to this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane. Sorry, you're not going to be able to get a round of applause. We're all online. So the next item we have is some goodwill messages for people that have been supporting corruption, anti-corruption in Nigeria. And we are going to, because of time, we're just going to take only 3. So I would like to start with Dr. Kole Shetima. I don't know whether he's online. Dr. Kole. Okay. What about Ms. Winifred Achu from ROLAC? Is she online?
Good morning, Umar. Yes, I'm online.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
You're welcome. Good morning.
ROLAC is particularly proud to support TUGA and the Interagency Task Team to host this event to mark the International Anti-Corruption Day. The theme for this year's International Anti-Corruption Day, United Against Corruption, Recover with Integrity, not only highlights TUGA's importance in Nigeria's fight against corruption, but it also highlights the need for anti-corruption agencies to coordinate and collaborate in the fight against corruption. Over the years, TUGA has remained consistent in coordinating anti-corruption agencies through the Interagency Task Team, and has also remained consistent in pursuing a united front against corruption and supporting monitoring of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy. As a program, ROLAC realizes that this is not an easy feat, and the fact that TUGA has remained consistent with and on this is something that is worthy of commendation. As a program, ROLAC is committed to supporting the federal government's fight against corruption as executed by agencies under the Interagency Task Team. We are particularly interested in supporting strengthening of the institutional and human capacity of these agencies, and also supporting a culture of collaboration and coordination by anti-corruption agencies in Nigeria. That's because we believe that with improved capacity and a more coordinated approach, implementation of preventive mechanisms as well as transparent and accountable recovery processes would be achieved. We think that this year's theme, the theme for the year, United Against Corruption, is something that is worthy of note. It is also my personal hope that today's meeting will reinvigorate the desire and motivations by anti-corruption agencies to continue to collaborate and coordinate on anti-corruption in Nigeria. I wish all of us a good and purposeful deliberations, and I hope that we would find that this meeting is particularly useful to us as key stakeholders in the fight against corruption. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Achu. That was quite precise. The next goodwill message we would like to take from Mr. Shamsuddin Usman from the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD. Are you online?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I'm having an issue with my camera. Yeah.
We can hear you clearly. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Just to first thank Tuga for coordinating the process that actually led to what we have today, celebration of Anti-Corruption Day. And seeing anti-graft agencies working together collaboratively to organizing a fair event of these is something that is dear to the Center for Democracy and Development. Over the years, we've been providing support to strengthening the capacity of anti-graft agencies because we know that addressing development challenges that we have and financing development in the country has a lot to do with addressing or mitigating the corruption that we have in the country. So we are very keen in providing support to strengthening the capacity of graft agencies. And this, the celebration of the International Anti-Corruption Day is one of the ways to conscientize people, create awareness around the need for us to see all of ourselves as stakeholders that have one or two responsibilities to play in addressing corruption. So the message from us is to say that it is the responsibility of everyone to identify what could be concretely done to contribute to all the efforts to address this issue. And we are always committed to providing necessary support to anti-graft agencies to ensure that the capacity is built and better strengthened to address corruption in the country. Thank you, and we wish you fruitful deliberation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yusuf. Your message has been well taken and noted. The next on the agenda is from the UNODC itself, ably represented by Dr. Oliver Stope, who is a country representative of the UNODC in Nigeria. I believe he's going to deliver the message from the United Nations Secretary General. Mr. Oliver, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Omar. Allow me please to adopt the existing protocol and also allow me to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to the members of the Interagency Task Team. It's indeed been 11 years that you have been reliably organizing this important event around the Anti-Corruption Day and multiple activities that relate to it. And I think in the years where interagency coordination and cooperation has not always been easy, it is really remarkable that you were able to maintain this. And I would really like to express my thanks to Tugar at the Secretariat, but also to each and every single member of the Interagency Task Team. Now, obviously with COVID-19 and the challenges related for us to recover from it as a global community and as individual countries, anti-corruption work has probably never been more critical than what it is today. And our collective success and your success will be critical to our ability to recover. That is also why the theme for this year's Anti-Corruption Day is Recover with Integrity, or Recover Better with Integrity. Now, I have the pleasure to read to you the message by the Secretary General of the United Nations, and I'm quoting. In recent years, anger and frustrations have erupted at corrupt leaders and governments. In some countries, people have taken to the streets with demands for social justice and accountability. Amidst these deep concerns, the COVID-19 crisis creates additional opportunities for corruption. Governments are spending rapidly to get economies back on track. They provide emergency support and procure medical supplies. Oversight may be weaker, and the development of vaccines and treatments adds to the risks of bribery and of profiteering. Corruption drains resources from people who need them, undermines trust in institutions, exacerbates the vast inequalities exposed by the virus, and hinders a strong recovery. We cannot allow stimulus funds and vital emergency resources to be diverted. Recovery from the pandemic must include measures to prevent and combat corruption and bribery. We need broad partnerships to strengthen oversight, accountability, and transparency, building on the global anti-corruption tools provided by the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. Action against corruption should be part of broader national and international reforms and initiatives to strengthen good governance, tackle illicit financial flows and tax havens, and return stolen assets in line with sustainable development goals. We must take the opportunity for ambitious reforms and initiatives at the first ever General Assembly special session against corruption, which will hold next year. On International Anti-Corruption Day, all of us, governments, businesses, civil society, and all stakeholders must resolve to work together to promote accountability and end corruption and bribery for a more just and equal world. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Oliver. Okay, so the next thing we have is the account of stewardship. I would like to call on, before we go to the next item, I would like to recognize the presence of the ICPC Secretary, Professor Musa Usman Abubakar, and board members and directors of the ICPC. You are welcome, sirs. Would you please raise your hand? Let's see you. ICPC Secretary, Professor Abubakar. Okay, so the next item is the account of stewardship.
Hello. Hello.
Okay. ICPC Secretary. Okay, yeah, we are welcome, sir. Yes, sir. So the next item is account of stewardship. I would like to start with Professor Muhammad Isa, the chairman of the Code of Conduct Bureau. Is he online? Okay. I think Professor Isa is not online. He's having some technical glitches. So can I call Mr. Mohammed Umar Abba, the acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
The chairman of this forum, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure and privilege to present this goodwill message on the occasion of the commemoration of the International Anti-Corruption Day 2020. Let me start by commending the various anti-corruption agencies for collaborating effectively towards the commemoration of the 2020 International Anti-Corruption Day in what has been an unusual and a peculiar year for all of us. It is indeed apt, given that the theme of this year's celebration is United Against Corruption, Recover with Integrity. The choice for the theme cannot be more appropriate because the year 2020 has been marked with so many challenges that have threatened to undermine years of progress, not only in the area of anti-corruption, but even the economy and the social fabric of our society. The world is still battling with the COVID-19 pandemic, and given its far-reaching impact, it will likely take many years for nations to fully return to normal. Yet, despite this, we must not relent in our collective resolve to fight corruption in our land, and we must therefore re-strategize to reposition ourselves to respond to emerging issues and challenges caused by the crisis. There is no gainsaying that the situation calls for us to unite with a common purpose, deepen our cooperation, and recommit to implementing the broad goals of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy in our respective agencies. At the EFCC, we are prioritizing domestic cooperation as an effective tool to win the war against corruption, and we will continue to support any initiative that promotes collaboration. We must leverage on each other's strengths to create the desired result we seek, so that corruption is minimized in our lives. In this regard, we consider stakeholder engagement to be key to our collective success. To achieve all this, it will be important that we embrace the deployment of technology as an enabling tool in the fight against corruption for effective prevention, investigation, and prosecution of corruption-related crimes. Therefore, in line with this year's International Anti-Corruption Day theme, United Against Corruption, Recover with Integrity, we wish to lend our voice to the collaborative development of policies, practices, and synergies that will result in further eliminating the incidents of corruption and other related crimes in Nigeria. I encourage us to use this occasion to review our anti-corruption efforts and also collectively chart a way forward. I have no doubts that contributions here will lead to more effective and inclusive multi-stakeholder cooperation and actions on anti-corruption. As I conclude, may I urge us all to sustain our resolve and work with determination in our effort to institutionalize good governance for the benefit of our great nation. Thank you all, and I wish us fruitful deliberation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, EFCC. That was quite precise. Next on the agenda, I would like to call Professor Musa Usman Abubakar.
Hello.
The Commission
Hello.
Secretary of the ICPC. You have the floor, sir. Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. The moderator, the acting chairman of the ICPC, and other distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I feel greatly honored to present this goodwill message on behalf of the chairman of the ICPC, Professor Bolaji Owasonye. The chairman would have been with us today on this very important event, but for the fact that he left for special commitment outside the federal capital. Let me start by congratulating the UN and other stakeholders for organizing this event with the theme United Against Corruption, Recover with Integrity. The theme is apt and couldn't have come at a better time than now, when the international community is giving impetus to asset recovery across the globe. More importantly, this year's event coincided with the ICPC's 20th anniversary. On this note, permit me to reiterate some of the functions of the Commission, which included investigation, prosecution, public enlightenment, and system study and review. The Commission has recorded tremendous successes during the period under review as a result of activities carried out with limited resources, both human and material, and of course, the ravaging effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. Among the milestones are hosting the second National Summit on Diminishing Corruption, where outstanding public servants were conferred with Integrity Award by His Excellency President Muhammad Buhari, getting approval of the Federal Executive Council for the National Ethics and Integrity Policy, hosting the African Regional Webinar on combating corruption and illicit financial flows, launching the National Corruption Index, and presentation of ICPC's ICPC at 20 legacy book. On recoveries, the Commission's initiative, that is Constituency and Executive Project Tracking Initiative, made tremendous successes. And this year, we focus on areas that will make significant impact on the well-being of Nigerians. These areas include agriculture, water resources, power, education, and health. Many assets, both capital and liquid, have been recovered. Recently, as a result of our collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Finance, we were able to restrain the sum of 142 million naira in many MDAs. We also recovered equipment such as tractors, ambulances, transformers, hospital equipment, etc. Earlier this year, the Commission seized billions of naira from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture because the money was moved under suspicious circumstances beyond the threshold that would put it within the purview of the Accountant General of the Federation into an offline account in CBN where utilization would be outside the monitoring of gift miss. Other assets recovered include 23 buildings, 15 business premises, and 26 plots of land and 2 farms. There are quite a number of other recoveries made by the Commission as a result of the initiative, and importantly, as a result of our initiatives, 59 contractors handling projects across the country had to be forced back to site when they had abandoned the projects earlier on. So these are but few of some achievements recorded during this period under review. I thank the UNODC and other stakeholders very much for inviting the Commission to partake in this event, and I wish us successful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Abubakar. That was quite precise and concise as well. And I would like to recognize the presence of Mr. Waziri Adio, who is the Executive Secretary of NATI. You're welcome, sir. Moving forward, I learned Mr. Sebastian is supposed to give an account of stewardship for the CCB, Code of Conduct Bureau. Are you online, Mr. Sebastian? Okay, moving on. Can I please call on Dr. Orji, Obonaya Orji of CDD for your account of stewardship, please? Dr. Orji.
Well, thank you very much, Umar. I waited a little bit to be sure you are referring to me. I work for NATI. I'm not the CDD.
Oh, so, my apologies, please. I think I had too much coffee. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Nate.
Yes, I'm glad that the Executive Secretary of NATI has also joined us. On his behalf, I would like to say that to thank Tuga for this annual event, and to thank all our partners, to also thank the UNODC and all our development partners, the civil society, the media, relevant government agencies, and the chief executives that are here present for this annual event. NATI remains ever committed to the goals of the interagency tax team as a key member of the team, and also committed to the fight against corruption generally. For us in NATI, we remain committed and ever resolute in the fight against corruption and enthroning transparency and accountability in the oil, gas, and mining sector, which is our thematic area. And under the leadership of the Executive Secretary in the last 5 years, especially in the last 2 years, a lot has also been achieved in this direction, working with companies, the civil society, and relevant government agencies that either warehouse, take custody, or manage extractive revenue funds. The first step we took was to ensure that our reports, which actually feed into the larger reforms in the sector, are timely, and very of high quality in terms of content. The timeliness of our report is key to ensure that the data that we provide that shape the entire reforms in the sector are current and reliable. NITI has also taken very fundamental steps to automate our process by establishing what we call the NITI Audit Management Systems, NAMS. In this process,
Mr. Omaro can go ahead.
Hello, Dr. Oji.
I hope I've not.
Mr. Omaro can go ahead.
Please, am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
Oh, thank you very much.
I think that, yes, sir.
Yes.
You may continue, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we've also introduced a number of policy instruments that allows us to not just make use of the contents of our report in ensuring that we interface with policymakers to shape the direction and content of the reforms. We publish a number of policy papers and occasional papers, as well as do a lot of analysis in terms of quarterly reviews of FAQ releases to government at all levels. We've also introduced taking measures to engage very directly with the national oil company, the NNPC, on the key remedial issues that have been disclosed by NITI reports over the years. We found out that roundtable engagement with NNPC has been most useful and very productive. In this, under this direction, we established what we call the NITI NNPC Joint Committee on Remediation. A comprehensive team from both sides were set up, and we were able to look at all the key issues. Wow, I'm lost. Hello?
We can hear you, sir. Yeah, continue. Go on.
We were able to put up a very robust team from both sides that came up, that looked at the issues under NITI reports that will require key agencies like NNPC to look at, which are very necessary in reforming the sector. We are glad to announce that the report of the Joint Committee is ready. The two agencies have looked at the report, have approved it, and that if a number of measures have been taken to address the areas that have not been addressed. The report also highlighted the areas that have also been resolved and some other issues that are pending. It's a very important step in our engagement with with the national oil company. And under this engagement, we're also glad to announce that the NNPC has not just bought into the EITI as a niche, as a global initiative, but has now joined the global EITI as a supporting company. This is very fundamental for us because under this process, our job is made much more easier, which means that the NNPC has now accepted fully the principles of the Global Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, and we're able to also open up its processes and procedure for wider scrutiny. We are widening the scope to all other key areas, key agencies and companies in the sector because of their relevance in the interim reform initiative. We're glad to announce that NITI is a very key partner in the Open Government Partnership. A lot has been done under the Open Government Partnership, and putting all this together with the reform initiatives which were spearheaded within the extractive industries, we are certain that in no distant future, Nigerians will begin to feel the impact of revenues from oil, gas, and mining, which our entire focus is to ensure that it helps government to provide roads, water, electricity, basic infrastructure, and build a much more harmonious peaceful society for the good of all. On this note, and on behalf of the Executive Secretary, I need to once more thank you for the opportunity and to wish all partners and the Anti-Corruption Day for 2020 a very peaceful deliberation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Orji. Neti seems to have done so much. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Next, we're trying to keep to time. I'll call on Madame Lillian, who is the head of TUGA for our own account of stewardship. Thank you, ma'am. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Yakubu. And good morning, all. Please permit me to stand on existing protocols. I hope you can all hear me.
Loud and clear.
Yes. As most of you are aware, TUGA's core mandate is to support the anti-corruption agenda with coordinated data generated through research and surveys, and in addition, provide a platform for interagency coordination. What we do in the area of interagency coordination is what you are seeing here this morning. For the past 12 years, we've had the responsibility of ensuring joint commemoration of certain events, such as the International Anti-Corruption Day event. In addition, also, we ensure joint fulfillment of our treaty obligations. TUGA coordinates our responses to our treaty obligations as it relates to the UN Convention Against Corruption. We work closely with other IATT members as well as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is also an IATT member. What we have done in the past year, I will start with what we have done on the platform of the ONCAC. Nigeria is currently reviewing Mauritania, and as part of our work as the secretariat of that review, we have organized experts from other agencies to complete the review of at least the first phase of review of Mauritania. We concluded that process last month and we remitted our responses to the ONCAC Secretariat in Vienna. In addition, TUGA has also coordinated Nigeria's response to the UN General Assembly high-level meeting proposed for early next year, for sometime middle next year, which we call the UNGAS. It's on a corruption-related issue to elevate the discussions about corruption to the level of the UN General Assembly. Nigeria has made very incisive responses according to our national policies, especially as it relates to asset recovery. TUGA has worked closely with the permanent mission in Vienna to coordinate Nigeria's response. Thirdly, on the platform of the ONCAC, we have TUGA organized the first meeting of the post-resolution strategy. As some of you are aware, Nigeria is very active in terms of proposing resolutions at the level of the ONCAC, especially as it relates to asset recovery. The post-resolution strategy we're trying to adopt is to ensure that when we push through those resolutions at the international level, we also come back to make full use of the import of those resolutions at the domestic level. The first meeting of that group held a couple of months back, and we have now agreed that we have a committee on post-resolution strategy. Part of the work we have done this year is on ethics. 2 years ago, TUGA published a scoping survey of the ethics environment in Nigeria. And part of the findings of that publication is the need to strengthen the work of the Code of Conduct Bureau as it relates to the Code of Conduct for Public Officers. For the past 1 year, working in conjunction with the Code of Conduct for Public Bureau, we are in the process of developing a manual that unpacks and simplifies the Code of Conduct for Public Officers and will be a sort of guide to public servants in their day-to-day work. We already have a draft manual, and we expect that this manual will be launched at the first quarter of next year. Part of the work we're also doing in the research and survey mandate is the gap analysis and environmental scanning we've done on the public finance management. Over the past 10 years, TUGA has scoped, done a gap analysis on the public finance management at the federal level and at the state level, the level of the states. We have taken the states in tranches of 10, but we have now completed the entire 36 states. And what we are doing now, we're having a compendium that incorporates all the states. And we are going to publish early next year that compendium to see how the states stand in respect of public finance management using the ONCAC as a basis. Now that manual will be able to tell you which states already have the public procurement law, the ones that have fiscal responsibility law, audit law, and access to information law, all the transparency and accountability tools that relate to public finance management. We will have a compendium of where the states stand. The manual is almost complete. We hope to release first quarter of next year. The last but not the least is what we are, one of the biggest accomplishments we've been able to make in our work. Today at 5 p.m. at the Villa, the Vice President is going to launch the Nigeria Port Process Manual. This manual is a step-by-step process of a sequenced process of all the processes in the ports with timelines involving the activity of all the major port agencies, Nigeria Customs, Immigration, Port Health, and MPA. A step-by-step process of their standard operating procedure as it relates to stakeholders, how long each procedure takes to complete, who is responsible. So it's going to make the processes at the port predictable and transparent. We have been working on this for 4 years. It was as a result of corruption risk assessment we did at the port sector in conjunction with ICPC and the Bureau of Public Procurement. Part of the findings of that corruption risk assessment is the need to have a port sector integrity plan, and the major item on that integrity plan is to have this manual, what we call a single process manual. So stakeholders will be able to see in one document how they relate to the port agencies for any processes, whether it is berthing of ship, clearing of goods, and other kinds of things. So this manual is going to be launched today by the Vice President at 5 p.m. Some of you have already received the link to join virtually for the launch, and we expect to see you there. I think I'll stop here for now due to my time is up. Thank you very much, and I wish all of us happy celebration.
Thank you very much, Madam Lillian. I would like to acknowledge the presence of all ICPC state directors. They have all joined in from the 36 states of the Federation. You are all welcome. Also, Mr. Babagana Bashir from the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, Mr. Uche from the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation, Mrs. Bumi from the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Tony, who is the Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission, the Chief Commissioner of Public Complaints Commission, Barrister Ibagwa, is here, and Professor Sadiq of PACAC. You are all welcome, sirs. Thank you. So next, we'll take account of stewardship. I think Mr. Gwini is representing the Professor Isa of the Code of Conduct Bureau. Mr. Sebastian, you have the floor. Mr. Sebastian? Okay, we have some. Mr. Sebastian? Yeah, I'm offline. Okay, we don't have Mr. Sebastian online, so I think we'll go, we'll also acknowledge the presence of Barrister Victor, who is the chairman of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, and he's going to give us his own account of stewardship. Thank you. Can you hear me? Mr. Chairman. No, offline. They can't hear me. It's network. It's IT.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, can you read me?
I can hear you, but I'm not sure about other people. So you may proceed, please.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear him as well?
Can you hear me, please?
We can hear you. Proceed, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Let me use this opportunity to thank the TUGA team for a wonderful job they've been doing over the years. For us at Fiscal Responsibility Commission, this is another opportunity for us to review the journey so far, what we've done in our efforts as a team to ensure the fight against the war against corruption. At Fiscal Responsibility Commission, of course, we all know that Fiscal Responsibility Commission was established as a baby of Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. Our mandate, simply put, established the commission to, among other things, to monitor and enforce the provisions of Fiscal Responsibility Act, and by so doing, promote the economic objective as contained in Section 16 of 1999 Constitution as amended. Well, over the years, it has not been easy for us as a commission, because taking a look at the Act, the challenges as contained in the Act, the lacuna, but notwithstanding that, the commission as a whole have moved on, and we've achieved a lot. We've done a lot in the milestone in our efforts to strengthen the accountability processes. It may interest you to know that despite the sort of demagogue, that's the Rasayan panel that is still talking about scrapping or merging Fiscal Responsibility Commission, we as the operators have not looked back. We've moved on. We've continued to ensure that we, as much as possible, continue to discharge the mandate, particularly in the area of accountability. Before this time, what was it like with government-owned enterprises, the scheduled corporation? You will recall that originally, at inception, there were 31 scheduled corporations under the Fiscal Responsibility Act. But now, with our efforts and by the approval of federal government through the Honorable Minister for Finance, we now have 122 scheduled corporations or agencies, which you can otherwise call government-owned enterprises. These enterprises are expected to remit the much needed revenue funds to the consolidated revenue funds of the federal government. It has not been easy, because getting them to do what they are ordinarily not used to, payment of 80% operating surplus into the CRF. Different strategies have been adopted to resolve this matter, because most of these agencies see most of these funds as theirs. In fact, they refer to these funds, which they should ordinarily remit to federal government, as our funds, as I used to call them. It may interest you to know that we just came back from Lagos. I just came back from Lagos yesterday, engaging some of these agencies, government-owned enterprises, in a training for the new template for calculation of operating surplus. Because before this time, they normally they use different accounting methods to submit what should ordinarily be profits or surpluses that should be remitted to federal government. They now put it in as losses. It has not been easy. But what have we done? You observe that the Act did not provide for any punitive measure like punishment. There's no sanction. While offenses, well over 50 offenses were created under the Act, but there are no punishment. So they found it very easy. What have we done? By coming out with the new template for calculation of operating surplus, which was approved by federal government, which is now being used, we are still engaged in training these agencies so that they can get used to it. But the results are definitely coming in. You observe that from our records, the commission has caused to be remitted well over 1.8 trillion since our inception. You will note particularly that for the past 2 years, that is between 2018 and 2020, you will observe that there is a lot of improvement, which is due to the newly approved template for calculation of operating surplus, which these agencies are now using to calculate what they should ordinarily remit. Before this time, what they normally do is to project themselves as having lost. In fact, most times they present a deficit budget. There's a particular case in point. Then before this time, an agency like MPA will make so huge an amount of money, running into hundreds of billions. Meanwhile, they will remit and tell you that they lost. But now, I'm very happy to say that a lot of them are coming forward. I have to give examples. Are coming forward on their own to declare profits, and they're remitting to CRF. There have been a lot of improvement. As we speak, I can tell you, NDIC, as an agency of government, is doing fairly very well, just like JAM. We must commend some of them that are doing well. And we must also say that agencies like NAFDAC and a lot of other agencies have continued to project their profits into losses, and they're insisting that they are not a revenue agencies of government. As we speak, we are in the process of coming out with a new template for medium-term expenditure framework and revenue. We are working closely with the relevant stakeholders to ensure that there is a standard, because there are some challenges we found out with most of these agencies in presentation of their MTEF, medium-term expenditure framework and revenue framework, which they ordinarily should submit in line with the provisions of the Act. We're engaging them on specific trainings so that they can come on board with what it should be. That apart, we've also, in line with our mandate, we're engaging the subnationals. It may interest you to know that only last September, this September, we had to engage all the states governments in the South Side through the office of the Nigerian Governors Forum to see how we can strengthen the accountability system at the subnational government. We had a retreat for all the states in the South in Port Harcourt. What are we doing with them? They need to buy into the regime of fiscal responsibility. You may observe that not all the states have agreed to adopt the law. Why? Simple, it's difficult to change from what you're used to. As we speak, only 22 states out of the 30 states have made attempts to adopt the fiscal responsibility law. However, these 22 states are at different levels. Only 16 out of these states have just set up their state fiscal responsibility agencies. Even at that, we've continued to prod the governors to see the need to strengthen those agencies so that they can really carry out their work. It's not been easy with the subnationals. We're still talking about state government. We're not yet in the local government because it's not even easy to get them on board. But when you're talking about the macroeconomic stability of our national economy, you have to also consider all these tiers because they all account for a high proportion, a high percentage of what we require in our macroeconomic stability. As we speak, it's very interesting to note that the initiative, the fiscal responsibility initiative, which we are making, have been adopted by the Nigerian Governors Forum, and they have promised to work with us to ensure that most of the states, if not all of them, buy into the new law, because it is critical, because we cannot continue to work only at the national level. The challenges are quite enormous. Presently, we have our operators in the 6 zones of the 6 geopolitical zones across the country in discharge of our mandate in respect of a capital project verification. What do we do with that? The Office of the DG Budget is required to submit to our office the budget implementation report on quarterly basis. we analyze this report and we engage the various MDAs to see how we can ensure that citizens get value for funds released from the Office of the Accountant General. Our experience is that most of these projects are still not what they should be. Even with all the efforts that has come on board, we believe that we can do a lot better, because when funds are released to most of these contractors, we find out that even the ministry engineers, the operators that should ordinarily supervise, the consultants that should ordinarily oversee and ensure that citizens get value for funds released by government, we'll find out that most of the consultants prefer to be in defense of these contractors more than speaking for the government, which funds them. Our experience is that there is need to strengthen this mechanism of project verification and monitoring. We forwarded our reports to the relevant stakeholders, including Mr. President and the National Assembly, on the need to ensure that any contractor that fails to account or get expected value for what have been released to them, that that appropriate sanctions, because there's a lot of challenge with the Act. The Act clearly defined what should constitute offense, but we're not in a position as we speak to do a lot in respect of sanction. This is what leads us to our efforts to ensure the amendment of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which is presently at the Ninth Assembly. You may be pleased to know that the efforts to amend and fill the lacuna in the Act have been made by the 7th and 8th Assembly. We're at the 9th Assembly now, and is at the committee stage. And we've also consulting with the relevant stakeholders for support to ensure that these challenges of the Act are filled so that citizens can actually appreciate this small law, this critical fiscal law that will bring a lot to bear. I want to particularly commend the efforts of EFCC in our partnership with them. We have an MOU which is helping us. Some of the challenges we have most times we get across to them to see how they can, because we don't have that power sanction. We want to appreciate them. We also want to appreciate the Office of Auditor General. We want to particularly appreciate NITI for their partnership in all that we've been doing. And we look forward that in the coming days and months, with the real challenges we are facing, that citizens, a lot of citizens are coming to understand the need that all hands must be on deck to assist the government to ensure that every kobo released from the national coffers should be well utilized so that citizens can get value for money. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for all what you have done for the country. I'm sure all your efforts have been well recognized by different agencies and citizens as well. So next on the agenda, by tradition, most international anti-corruption days, there are activities that take place at the secondary school levels all over the world. So for this year, we have an anti-corruption anthem that was developed by some secondary school students, I believe. So we'd like to hear from them. Thank you.
Citizens are engaged with mine. Nigeria is mine. I do my best to ensure the Nigeria of my dreams. When corruption is prevented with vigor, sanctions are enforced with rigor. Citizens are engaged with might. Seek ways of beaming life. Proceeds of crime are recovered for my future. ethical conduct, and will uphold and nurture. Say no to corruption. Say no to corruption.
That was brilliant. That was quite brilliant. The youth. Yeah. Admin, you could proceed. Next is presentation of poems.
My name is Sani Korede from the Battle Axe High School, FHA, Lugbe, Abuja. I'm here to recite a poem called Say No to Corruption, Every No Counts. Corruption is a war that has no sophisticated weapon, yet it strangles visions and hope. It aborted useful plans and caused them pain. You have carried us on sale to the highest bidder with iron hand. You have torn apart every piece of our lives. It's high time we say no to corruption. Every no counts. Without saying no, will the children have a legacy? Will our smile remain the same? What song do we have left? Perhaps it doesn't matter anymore. My lost love. We need to compromise to say no to corruption. Every no counts. It's like a freedom of a bird, as a sting of a scorpion. A snake bite is poisonous. Corruption kills faster than those venom. No wonder it's a deadly element. It's high time we say no to corruption. Every no counts. The last count of my blood smelt has rejected your offer. Thank you.
Oluwatosin Obasanya, and the name of my school is Glisten International Academy. The title of my poem is No Corruption. Children are famished. Nigeria's name tarnished. The old are crippled. The government riches triple. They say education is the key, but even education we cannot see. The people march and ask for their rights. Corruption fights with all its might. And the citizens, with unruly behavior, they seem to think corruption is their savior. To save them from hardships, certainly not. Nigeria, the youths are crying. Innocent civilians are dying. Nigeria, oh Nigeria. When will you wake? Can't you hear the alarm quake? The wind whispers, wake, Nigeria, wake. Stand up to take the victory that is at stake. For the future, you can only make when you say no corruption.
Hello. I think those kids deserve a round of applause, so you may clap for them wherever you are. And that's Master Korede Sani and Ms. Oluwatosin Obasanya from Glisten International School and Battle Axe Academy. Thank you. So we're still on schedule, and the next thing, we're going to take 3 accounts of stewardship from Barrister Ibawa, the Honorable Chief Commissioner, Public Complaints Commission. Next will be Tony Ojukwu, Barrister, Executive Secretary, National Human Rights Commission, and Mr. Babagana Bashir Rufai, so in that order. So, Honorable Chief Commissioner, PCC, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Hope I'm heard. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir.
Sorry. It's my pleasure to participate in this year's Anti-Corruption Day once again, which is a global event by the United Nations. Let me start by congratulating the Interagency Task Force, the task team, the umbrella body of anti-corruption agencies and other anti-corruption agencies globally on this year's celebration. Now, the Public Complaints Commission handles issues of administrative corruption, and essentially, as one of the earliest and foremost anti-corruption agencies established in the country, having been established way back in 1975, which is over 45 years ago, the Commission uses both preventive and curative mechanisms in dealing with the issue of administrative corruption. Now, Public Complaints Commission, like other ombudsman institutions all over the world, employs these measures towards the handling and the fight against corruption in Nigeria. The Commission's core mandate of fighting corruption through its preventive and curative mechanism in the last 1 year has generally been negatively affected by the emergence of COVID-19 that took the world by storm, impacting every facet of the society, individuals, institutions, and communities, as well as nations. The above scenario notwithstanding, the Honorable Chief Commissioner and other commissioners in the states considered it expedient to apply new normal approaches of handling various complaints from different parts of the country due to the reality on ground. One of the new normal employed by the Commission was the issuance of movement permits to some very senior staff of the Commission. The movement permit allowed them to move around and interface between the law enforcement agents and the general public wherever and whenever issues arose. The Honorable Chief Commissioner and other commissioners in the states also embarked on the monitoring tours in their various locations to ensure strict compliance with the rule of law by the security agents and the general public, and thereby resolving conflicts arising from the process of enforcing restrictions on movements. Complainants were encouraged to use the Commission's various social media platforms to lodge their complaints. Some complainants and respondents were contacted online when there arose the need to do so. The Commission, through the online approach, was able to successfully resolve some cases of distress calls over slow or non-response by the task force on COVID-19 to citizens who required attention for suspected COVID-19 cases in families and communities. During the pandemic, the Commission successfully handled over 200 proactive complaints, and this was made possible due to the new normal approach adopted by the Commission. Also, within this period of 1 year, the Commission received reactive cases of about 12,000, unlike in the previous years. For instance, at the peak of the pandemic, the Commission reacted to a viral audio recording of a woman in Abuja who complained of the lack of prompt response by NCDC Kano, which led to the untimely death of her son-in-law in Kano. The Commission's intervention on the matter made the NCDC to promptly do the needful on the matter. The rapid response team with necessary medical supplies, equipment was immediately sent to Kano to resolve the issue. The Commission also maintained and sustained its collaboration with other anti-corruption agencies, non-governmental and whistleblowing organizations like Pro Bono Lawyers, Human Rights Radio, ROI Filmmakers Association, the Human Rights Commission, the EFCC, and other similar agencies. Now, given that movements were limited, the Commission, through its 2 departments of investigation, used the period through the committee process to review several complaints that had been pending in the Commission for over 3 years. In the course of this, the committees were able to resolve over 400 cases. This was done through online contacts made with both the respondents and the complainants. Furthermore, the Commission got its core mandate and
also sensitization of stakeholders, the major stakeholders.
Processing of complaints that came in because there are no social media platforms available. This was part of the successes in the course of this year, which was fraught by the pandemic. And we have continued to improve on the areas which had not been fully used, especially through the social media platforms. I thank you very much for your audience.
Thank you very much, Barrister. Next, we have Barrister Tony Ojukwu, the Executive Secretary of National Human Rights Commission. You have the floor, sir. Thank you very much. Please let me stand on the existing protocols. The National Human Rights Commission is indeed highly honored to deliver this goodwill message and account of its stewardship at the commemoration of the International Anti-Corruption Day with the theme United Against Corruption, Cover with Integrity. Corruption constitutes an unusual and extraordinary threat to the full enjoyment of human rights in Nigeria. As a government agency saddled with the mandate of promoting, protecting, and enforcing human rights in Nigeria, the National Human Rights Commission is very committed to the anti-corruption drive aimed at eradicating the Hydra-headed monster. In the last 1 year, it has recorded giant strides aimed at repositioning and making the Commission a world-class human rights institution. In terms of institutional reforms, for efficient complaints treatment, the former Protection and Investigation Department in the Commission was unbundled into 3 departments, namely the Civil and Political Rights Department, the Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights Department, and the Department for Women, Children, and Vulnerable Groups. In furtherance of the above, staff positions were realigned and more staff employed for effective service delivery. Strategic performance improvement trainings were also pursued vigorously for staff. To ensure that all Nigerians have access to our services, additional state offices were established, and the Commission currently has offices throughout the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. An organization without a plan is like a ship without a rudder. Accordingly, a 4-year strategic plan was developed from 2019 to 2022 to reposition the Commission towards a path that would ensure efficient and effective service delivery. The plan also incorporates the strengthening of accounts, audit, and procurement departments to ensure transparency and accountability in the Commission's transactions. Various trainings have been organized for the relevant departments to enable them key into relevant government reforms to improve accountability. The Anti-Corruption and Transparency Unit, which is a key arm of the Commission, was also strengthened with a Deputy Director as its head, and trainings have been organized for staff to enhance their duties as anti-corruption units. There is a great nexus between human rights and anti-corruption, and the National Human Rights Commission shall continue to work assiduously for the inculcation of the right anti-corruption values into the populace through human rights education, awareness creation, sensitization, advocacy, as well as collaboration with relevant stakeholders. The Commission has also championed police reforms. As part of its work to tackle corruption amongst law enforcement agencies, the Commission is coordinating the Multi-Stakeholders Forum for the reform of the Nigerian police force. Aside from the issue of police brutality, one endemic problem is the issue of extortion and corruption. The reforms targets dealing with the issue of corruption in the police so that we stop extortion, confiscation of people's properties, and perversion of justice. The National Human Rights Commission is also pushing for direct transmission of funds by the police establishment to the various levels like the state commands, the divisional commands, the area commands, the police station levels, so that each level will have adequate resources to carry out their functions without resorting to extortion of members of the public. At this juncture, I wish to congratulate the Interagency Task Team on Anti-Corruption for this laudable initiative. I also wish to encourage participants to take advantage of the benefits offered by this roundtable to enhance their competence in fighting corruption unitedly. Thank you for listening, and I wish all of us fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Barrister Tony, and the Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission, and well done for all your legal and institutional reforms. Next, we have Mr. Babagana Bashir of the NFIU. You have the floor, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Omar, for giving me the floor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to start on the note of appreciation to TUGA for the effective coordination, and then to the co-facilitator for the wonderful organization of this timely event. The NFIU, Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit, since inception, establishment in 2018, have been able to achieve and contribute immensely to the fight against corruption, money laundering, and other organized crime. It is pertinent to note here that the NFIU 2018 Act has not only reinforced but strengthened the competence of reporting entities, especially the financial institution, in the confidentiality of report and information filed with the NFIU. This has also further improved the quality and credibility of intelligence disseminated to LES and AES for the fight against corruption and combating money laundering. The NFIU, in tandem with this year's theme of the fight against corruption, have also developed an inbuilt software thanks to the ingenuity of our ICT staff called CRIMS, the Criminal Record Information Management System, which actually provide a platform for not only recording of criminals' activities, but also for monitoring and tracking of criminals and their activities nationwide. This software is currently under deployment, and we expect that by the year, before the end of the year, or in the next 12 months, we will be able to deploy this software to all the police outposts in the country, to all the security agencies, law enforcement agencies, and the anti-corruption agencies. This platform will provide us with the ability to not only track criminal activities, but also to monitor criminal and their activities all over the Federation. The NFIU, as part of its contribution to the fight against corruption, have also been able to issue an advisory to the financial institution, especially with the advent of the pandemic COVID-19, which, as one of the early speakers observed, has opened up opportunities and windows for corrupt-minded citizens for corruption, embezzlement, and diversion of public funds as a result of emergency spending by the government at all tiers to cushion the effect of lockdown and economic downturn, and also to support the citizens. We have issued an advisory to the financial institutions on mechanism and strategies to track and monitor red flags and indicators in diversion or embezzlement of funds that are meant to cushion the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. The NFIU have also, in the course of the year, successfully disseminated financial intelligence that have led to the recoveries of millions of dollars. Time will not have permitted me, I'll have shared with you statistics of the recovery that we have been able to make, and then repatriation that also we have been able to make as a result of financial intelligence disseminated, spontaneous intelligence disseminated to other FIU in other jurisdictions. But allow me also to read through some of the achievements that we have been able to record in the course of the year, both in terms of advisory issues and then collaboration with other law enforcement agencies and anti-corruption agencies. The NFIU has issued guidelines relating to the following: NFIU guidelines on terrorism financing indicators, NFIU guidelines on tax evasion indicators, NFIU guidance on drug trafficking indicators, NFIU guidance on FATF best practices for targeted financial sanctions on terrorism financing, NFIU guidelines on FATF advisory on transparency and beneficial, NFIU guidance on potential money laundering and terrorist financing risks of virtual currency, AML CFT guidance for dealers in precious stones and metal. The NFIU in the course of the year have also been able to disseminate over 1,500 reactive and proactive intelligence, which has led to various recoveries, successful prosecutions, and some ongoing prosecutions. In 2014, the NFIU received a foreign request from sister FIU on transaction from Nigeria over a transfer of $5.7 million to the account of an illegal arms dealer under investigation in their country. Analysis in the NFIU revealed that the entity received $36 million from a government office in Nigeria for the purchase of arms. Upon receipt of the funds, several transfers were made to different countries, including a transfer of $30 million to a company in Nigeria that is into general trading. The NFIU also requested for additional information from the different FIUs on the subject and entity, and the intelligence received was forwarded to a law enforcement agency. The intelligence formed part of the input made by the NFIU on the ongoing prosecution of arms procurement deals. In another case, upon receipt of a request from an anti-corruption agency on the subject under investigation, during the course of analysis in the NFIU, it was established that the subject is a civil servant and he incorporated two companies, that he is the director and signatory to the account of the companies. The subject used his office to divert funds from the federal government of Nigeria into the account of these companies for his personal use. The anti-corruption agency made a recovery of 56.2 billion naira from the subject. Another case is a SCR filed by a financial institution on the subject who received an unusual inflow of 500 million naira from an account owned by him that is domiciled in another financial institution. He informed the financial institution that the funds were payment for legal services he rendered. Analysis finding in the NFIU revealed that the subject made 22 cash deposits on a single debt of 200 million naira. These transactions are consistent of money laundering indicator. The subject is a legal counsel to a former judge that was retired to corruption allegations, and also a counsel to the recently convicted PDP stalwart for the arms procurement deal. He is also a counsel to one of the opposition political parties in Nigeria. The intelligence was forwarded to an anti-corruption agency to consolidate on their ongoing investigation on arms deal procurement. Another contribution is a case of a FEB who hold a relationship with an organization in their country and that own a property in another jurisdiction. The subject disposed the property and instructed that the money be transferred to his bank account in Nigeria. The disclosure was made due to negative media on subject in Nigeria, being a subject of money laundering investigation. They inquired if Nigeria was interested in restraining the funds suspected to be proceeds of crime. The NFIU contacted the LEA investigating the subject in Nigeria to confirm if the funds are of interest to the agency. They replied in the affirmative, and the NFIU restrained over $400 million US. Another case is also the case of an FIU receiving a spontaneous disclosure from a sister FIU on a former managing director of one of the collapsed banks in Nigeria. He is currently facing money laundering trial for mismanagement and embezzlement of 179 billion naira of the defunct bank. The FIU disclosed that the subject has a trust company that owns properties and cash valued at 7.2 million pounds and $500.3 million in their jurisdiction. The NFIU has disseminated the intelligence to the investigating agency on the need to liaise with the Federal Ministry of Justice to send an international letter of request to the foreign jurisdiction with a view to repatriate the funds back to Nigeria. In conclusion, the NFIU Director CEO, who actually have loved to be here, but is unavoidably absent due to some pressing national assignment, is sending his goodwill messages and wishes all of us best deliberation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Babagana Bashir. Well done to the NFIU for all their work on countering money laundering and illicit financial flows. Thank you. Next we have is Mr. Arabi, who is the Director General of Public Service Reforms. Sir, you have 3 to 5 minutes, please. Thank you. Mr. Arabi, DG, BPP, Bureau of Public Service Reforms. Okay, Mr. Sebastian, Code of Conduct Bureau, are you ready?
Hello? Are you there?
Yeah, Mr. Sebastian, Code of Conduct.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. We can hear you.
Hello? Mark. Okay. Yeah. The chairman, CCB, Professor Issa Mohammed, is unavoidably absent and had asked me to present his goodwill message to you. I present special greetings to all Nigerians this morning on the occasion of the World Anti-Corruption Day 2020. On behalf of members and management of CCB, I would like to thank the organizers and supporters of this great event for the opportunity to demonstrate the Code of Conduct Bureau's support to the national campaign towards zero tolerance for corruption by this administration. Permit me to reiterate, as always, that a day like this calls for sober reflection. It invites all political and religious leaders, governments, private sector, non-state actors, and lobby groups to work together against corruption. International Anti-Corruption Day ceremonies are meant to educate the public on the ills of corruption and how to surmount them. The Bureau is therefore positioned and committed to the enlightenment of the general public on the need to shun and expose corruption in the public sector. Fighting corruption requires personal sacrifice and courage. As a people, we are so passionate about the change we want to see in our country. We share many values. We are tired of poverty. We want all our children to be in school. We want people to have access to health care and live in decent homes. We want security of lives and property. We want an end to insurgency and various forms of criminality. To have all this and much more, we must fight corruption from all angles. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the CCB is one of the agencies with the powers to enforce accountability in the conduct of government business. The mandate of the Bureau is apt, given the current socio-economic crisis in Nigeria. The inimical effects of the twin evil of fraud and corruption on the economic and social development of Nigeria cannot prosper. In its avowed commitment to fighting corruption, the Bureau, through its public enlightenment activities, has increased the awareness of its existence among public officials and the general public. Ladies and gentlemen, 2020, a lot of challenges, not only of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, while the lockdown carried out the following activities. Activities were carried out in all the 36 states of the Federation. The Bureau monitored homeschool grown feeding, trader money, and then the distributions of COVID-19 palliative states, capital, and local governments. The Bureau has stepped up its enlightenment programs in partnership with Go Getters. It's a private partnership, and has successfully trained all military formations, and many states in the federations have keyed into the program. The Bureau had, on the 18th day of November 2020, inaugurated committees to conduct a nationwide assets verification exercise of declared assets of public officers, covering the period 2017 to 2020. This exercise is currently going on. The Bureau recently concluded a national seminar on fighting corruption for socio-economic development in Nigeria. It was in consideration of the need for a post-COVID-19 response. In this of its full-time assets declaration. We are currently carrying out a test run of the process and are awaiting a symbolic declaration to herald full takeoff. We have also installed video and other conferencing facilities to enhance official procedure of the Bureau activity. The Bureau also recorded the following few statistics during the pandemic period. We have received petitions and intelligence like 120. We have number of cases investigated and concluded about 7. And then we have over 600 cases at the tribunal. I wish to conclude by World Anti-Corruption. Thank you all, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr. Sebastian, for your presentation. Is Mr. Arabi ready? DG, Bureau of Public Service Reforms. Bureau of Public Service Reforms. Okay, I think when we have him online, we'll bring him on later. So we now move to the main event. After this, where we'll have our panel discussions. And the first issue we're going to handle now is handling the challenge of COVID-19 pandemic, where we are. And this session is to be chaired by Ms. Ayo Obe, and the panelists are supposed to be Dr. Oliver Stowe of the UNODC, Mr. Aliu E. Aliu of the BPP, Professor Muhammad Isa, Chairman CCB, who will be represented by Mr. Sebastian, and Mr. Olarewaju Suraj of HEDA. So we may start. Ms. Ayo Obe, please take over the floor.
Thank you. Ms. Ayo, unmute your mic. Yeah.
Apologies. I want to welcome participants to this discussion. It's really to see not so much what our problems have been in the past, but what stage we are at now in the proceedings. And you've heard from most of our panelists, so you will not need to, I'll not need to introduce them afresh. So I will just go straight to the discussion so that we save enough time for questions and answers. And the first panelist that I would like to speak to is Dr. Oliver Stolpe of the United Nations Documents Office. Now, Dr. Stolpe, are you with me? Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Now, in your earlier account, you rightly stated that the COVID-19 pandemic had exacerbated existing discontent with corruption and its effect on the non-delivery of government obligations to the people. And I wonder whether from what you have observed at UNODC, whether you think that governments have used this opportunity to reposition themselves to deliver to people, with particular reference to Nigeria, or whether they have used it as an excuse for non-delivery and what the effect of that has been.
Okay, well, thank you very much for these questions and for going so straight to the point. That's much appreciated. I think it's a very difficult question to answer at this stage. I believe that if we look at the positive side, we have certainly seen that governments take the issue of corruption and the risks of corruption that have occurred simply as a result of the need to intervene extremely quickly and to respond to a crisis that required large procurement contracts in the medical sector, where goods had to be procured literally in days, if not hours. That created a certain vulnerability, so to speak, of the system. And I do recall it was literally, I think, not even up to a week after the first government lockdown in Nigeria that ICPC and EFCC issued the first warning, so to speak, about this risk of increased corruption. Also, of course, making reference to them having a watchful eye, so to speak, on the issue, and then subsequently starting to issue some specific guidance to government MDAs that were engaged directly at the forefront of the response to COVID-19. So I think governments have been taking it seriously. To what extent these efforts are resulting already and will continue to result in an improved, so to speak, recovery process, I think we will have to see a little bit, and we will have to study very carefully different governments, different approaches, just as we've been studying the response to COVID-19 itself and have seen very stark differences in the response by governments. I think also on the issue of corruption, we will see eventually the differences. And I do believe very strongly, and so do we at UNODC, that de facto governments who will put the corruption risk management at the forefront of their effort will recover more quickly and will recover with greater quality, will recover better. So that is also why the theme of this year.
Thank you very much. My next panelist is actually Mr. Sebastian Gwilym, who is representing the Bureau of Public Procurement, I believe. Mr. Gwilym, are you online?
It is Mr. Aliyu that is representing Bureau of Public Procurement.
Okay, I'm so sorry, Mr. Aliyu. I do apologize. then you are definitely online. Because Dr. Stolpe just spoke about the importance of the institutions which are going to oversee or monitor the way that governments spend money in their attempts to return, to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, it's not a secret that one impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is that the country's income is going to be greatly reduced due to the fact that despite government efforts to diversify the economy, the country still depends to a large extent on income from oil. Now, ordinarily, that should mean that Nigeria ought to try and wring the maximum value from each naira or dollar that it earns. But up till now, the media had been full of reports which gave disturbing signs that, so far from encouraging prudence, the impression that funds are being made urgently available had encouraged some kind of profligacy, hand sanitizers being bought for 5,000 naira and so on. So can you discuss the role of the BPP in combating this tendency and what's being done, whether it's by the BPP or how it's working with other agencies to recover overspent or wasted funds and how to prevent any repetition going forward?
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for having us on this very particular day of International Anti-Corruption Day. For us at the Bureau of Public Procurement, who handle the expenditure part of government, we were, of course, in the storm. And if you recall, because of our crucial roles in the economy, we could not even close during the pandemic. We were amongst those people that had passed so that we'll be coming to the office. And we had to make a balance between strict controls and delivery. Just like every other country, we had an emergency, so to say. And in our acts, emergencies are dealt with in a different way from the normal open competitive bidding. And just as all other countries, we had to come out with regulation on how to deal with pandemic. What we did essentially was to come out with new regulations together with our development partners. Just as in all other countries, we came out with a regulation as to sort of relax the strict procurement rules and at the same time not to take it on the borderline on emergency. Because of the lockdown, we needed to quickly, and we realized that government needed to quickly arrest the spread of the COVID itself. And hence, we sought out those things that we think are very, very important in order to address it, because we still need people to be around for us to continue as an economy. And as such, to arrest the spread of the pandemic, we needed certain things on ground. And what we did essentially is to also publish. We made it mandatory that they publish those procurements they were doing. And in fact, it's from these publications that a lot of the media were taking their cue, criticizing the expenditures and what have you, because part of the disclosure is proactive disclosure, and those were the publication. We found out that NCCD itself published about 800 or close to 1,000 procurements that they carried out. The teaching hospitals, the national hospitals also did that. And it now became a war. It's not just the Bureau itself that was supposed to check procurement, it's all of us that have access to this publication. So that was one of the major activity we carried out. We put up the NOCOPO, which is the platform for open government contracting portal, where everybody was expected to publish. So that publication was going on concurrently, as much as the procurement itself. So immediately you want to procure, you do a publication. You also do, because some of them were strictly emergency, immediately you do the procurement, you publish both the contractors, the people that benefited from the procurement and the prices for the public to scrutinize. So that was in place as an interim measure for the COVID. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Aliyu, and apologies for misidentifying you. But I was preempting myself with Mr. Sebastian Gwimi, who is representing the Code of Conduct Bureau. And as I was asking, that times like these can lead to the impression that the money is flowing. We all have to, the thing to do is to spend it and show that we spent it. And I wonder what the role of the Code of Conduct Bureau in this endeavor in trying to keep public servants on the straight and narrow in this regard has been. Have you actually taken any sanctioning measures, or what is the situation with the Bureau?
Thank you, Ayo. Are you there?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this discussion on this topical issue. There's no doubt that corruption thrives during any form of crisis. The ongoing global pandemic is surely not an exception. One of the constitutional assignments of Code of Conduct Bureau is the monitoring of public officers to conform to the highest standards of public morality in the conduct of government business. This can serve as a strong preventive measure at fighting corruption. If people know they are being monitored, the tendency to trade with caution certainly will be very high. At the onset of the lockdown, the Bureau mobilized its monitoring teams to monitor public officers that are likely to take advantage of the lockdown to exploit fellow citizens. Most of such officers are like the security agencies or agencies responsible for the distribution of the palliatives, or agencies in charge of trader money or school feeding programs. So the monitoring teams came up and started with the FCT. They were all over FCT, wherever distributions are being carried out, they were there. And they kept night vigils also, trying to track the activities of security officers. Tell you that the public got to know about Code of Conduct Bureau, and so many reports were being sent to CCB. We've had instances where we invited agencies like the police, the VIO, because most of these people come to complain that the VIO collected such and such from us. We were able to get that returned back. We were able to get the funds returned back to the persons who were exploited. And those such people sent letters to the Bureau appreciating the activities we have been doing. We've also got to instances where the particular geographical location here at the FCT, the police surrounded like more than 100 people in one place, purported to have been arrested for moving around. Now, if we are fighting COVID at that stage and you are putting 100 people clamped in one place, what are you saying? What are you trying to tell the public? That you are helping government to fight COVID, or you are trying to exploit them? And in most cases, you have to bail yourself. In bailing yourself, you have to part with some monies. Most of those who were confident enough to come and report to the CCB that they were exploited monies were collected, who were able to get some of the funds returned back to them. Then, having discovered the FCT successes, we were able to expand that to all the states of the Federation. Code of Conduct Bureau staff were all over the states of the Federation. They made incursions into government houses to ask where their palliatives were stored. They visited some of these palliatives. They took reports from them. In other states where palliatives have been stored for a very long time, our people were able to advise those state governments to go ahead and distribute these things so that they will not get wasted. The public out there are looking for food to eat. Some governors acted promptly, and some did not do, and we saw the embarrassment that followed thereafter. So presently what we are doing is to analyze some of those things that were done by trader money, some of those things that were done by those who distributed palliatives. We're taking statistics and then asking questions. We are inviting people to come and answer to their stewardship while the pandemic lasted. And I tell you that there will be a lot of prosecutions thereafter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Wimi. It's as you said, it's an important thing to try and let people know that you are being watched, so that that natural tendency that they obviously have to do the right thing is reinforced. But I want to turn to my last panelist, Mr. Olanrewaju Suraj. Suraj, are you there? If you are, please answer. Mr. Olanrewaju Suraj. I think we may have lost Mr. Suraj. If he comes back on, I will invite him. But because I was going to put it to him that a lot of the reports of the point that Mr. Gwimi was just making about people being arrested for breaching lockdown and so on. The newspapers were full of stories of people crossing state borders, even crossing international borders, as long as they were ready to pay. And I wanted to discuss with Mr. Suraj, not just what the government obligation is in this regard, but what we can do with regard to civil society. But while I hope to get him back online, I'm going to go back to my panelists for another round of discussion, because as we have examined where we are in terms of what government has done, where we the people are, and how corruption has impacted on our COVID response, I wonder, Dr. Stolpe, are we properly positioned to go forward and to build back? The phrase of the moment is build back better. You will no doubt have seen that in parts of the country, after we had a tinderbox because of the anti-COVID measures, and that caught fire in the wake of the EndSARS protests. And now we heard from the government that part of the funds that had been donated for the anti-COVID relief were going to be used to restore and rebuild part of what had been destroyed in the disturbances and the riots. I wonder whether you feel that this is something that builds up trust in the way that government is handling funds, and what else can be done if government has just decided to do that or had it rubber stamped. What we can do as we go forward to build up the trust that people need to have in their government, not just to make the sacrifices that were demanded of them in the run up to the COVID lockdowns, but also as we go forward to be patient about seeing whether government is going to perform the Build Back Better promise.
Yeah, thank you very much. There's a lot to unpack here, and I will try to do the best. Let's see. Now, I think there's two things that I would really like to focus on. One is, are we ready, and what else can we still do to essentially put ourselves in a condition to build back better? For me, the first thing here is, when we're talking about anti-corruption specifically, that Nigeria, like all other members of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, has been undergoing reviews of its systems, its institutions, its legal framework, and its capabilities to implement that legal framework against the requirements of that convention. those two reports were issued to Nigeria with a very strong involvement, of course, of Nigeria itself. And it concluded a very large number of recommendations that suggested like specific reform measures. The most prominent ones, at least that come now to mind, is certainly the passing of the Whistleblower Protection Act, the strengthening of the Supreme Audit institutions, the Auditor General in this case, the ensuring of an effective legal framework for the management of recovered assets. You will remember there's the Proceeds from Crime bill that has been with Parliament on several occasions actually over the last 10 years. The creation of a beneficial owner register, and so on and so forth. The list goes on. It's a very long and comprehensive list. So for me, the first issue here would be, let's look at that list and make sure that at least those aspects that are of primary relevance, so to speak, for exactly what you said, like for that ability to build back better and make sure that the funding that is received and dedicated for the response to COVID-19 is used in the best possible way and of course does not become victim of corruption, then that those measures should be tackled as a matter of priority. The second issue is with regard to gaining public confidence in Nigeria's overall efforts, but also very specifically in the anti-corruption agenda. I think one of the things that we found when we did just a few months ago, actually, it was on the last Anti-Corruption Day that we published the second Corruption in Nigeria survey, which essentially asked citizens to express their experiences when coming into contact with public service and where they were requested for bribes, what were the circumstances of these requests and what was their response to it. Did they refuse? Did they report? And so on and so forth. And I think what we saw there, and I think this is actually a very encouraging in some way, if you want to see the silver lining, encouraging news is two things. One is that there was an improvement between 2016 and 2019 in terms of the propensity of corrupt practices, of these sort of small-scale bribes, mostly exchanging hands when normal citizens come into contact with the public service. So there was some improvement. And the second thing was that actually the bribe-seeking behavior, if we can call it that way, concentrates itself very, very much in just a very few types of public officials, which means in terms of a reform response, it would be actually quite simple to provide for changes that are very tangible for citizens by curbing corruption in these specific public services. So there is actually quite some opportunity for government to tackle this issue of gaining, reinforcing, strengthening public confidence in its anti-corruption effort.
Thank you. Can you just, for the benefit of those who are watching, can you identify some of those agencies that were where the problem was most concentrated?
Right. So in terms of the agencies, and I'm not talking now about necessarily which agency was most affected in terms of prevalence, which means basically the percentage of people coming into contact with that office and then paying a bribe, but in terms of like actually what makes a difference in the life of Nigerians. So there is both the frequency of contact, so the relevance of the agency to the citizen, and then on the other hand, of course, the likelihood with which bribes are being collected. We have the police, I think that doesn't surprise anyone, but also other agencies that are typically present on our roads and are there to ensure, of course, our safety and security and also our compliance with road traffic requirements. And we're not always doing a good job, so I think we need to acknowledge that as citizens as well. But these agencies are quite often involved also in collecting bribes or soliciting bribes from people that are traveling on the roads. The other ones are relating to public utility officers. That seems to be another field that affects Nigerians quite strongly. And of course, health sector and teachers. Now, just to be clear, that doesn't mean that, for example, corruption in the education system is as prevalent as it is in the law enforcement system. But in terms of what matters to the citizens, what affects the citizens, these are the areas where I think focus would be really helpful. And it would, of course, also have a huge social impact in terms of improving access to services. But it also would help to reinstill, to reaffirm the trust that citizens want to have in their government. Let's not, I think any citizen wants actually to trust their government. It's not that they enjoy being frustrated with what they see.
Thank you. I'm going to skip over Mr. Aliyu because I want to continue this part of the discussion with Mr. Gwimi, who had already spoken about the fact that that the Code of Conduct Bureau is already preparing and trying to let public officers who are at the cutting phase, that is the ones, as Dr. Stolpe said, that we, the ordinary public, come into contact with on a very regular basis. Police, immigration, hospitals, and so on. And Mr. Gwimi, perhaps you can tell us, beyond the knowledge that, so to speak, Big Brother is watching you and that some people are going to come up, what is it that can be done for not just the installation of the proper degree of integrity amongst the public officers, but also the confidence that members of the public can have that if they are met with these demands, I'm not talking about the members of the public who are trying to circumvent the rules, because as was just mentioned, we're not always saints in that regard, but members of the public who are going about their ordinary business, but they don't want to spend time because it takes time to complain. What can be done to reinforce their determination to stand against such practices?
Hello, before he answers, Ms. Obe, I think Mr. Suraj is back online. So you could direct your questions. Suraj, are you there? Suraj?
Yes, I am here. How are you?
Okay, yeah, so she had a lot of questions for you, so he's back online.
Let me just finish with me.
Okay. Sorry.
Go ahead, Ms.
Unfortunately, most associations they feel that of judicial
I'm sorry, Mr. Gwimi.
Hello.
Yes.
We're losing sound.
Okay. Yeah. Let me quickly say that I agree with Dr. Oliver on the need to get public confidence in what we do. The we here means agencies, for example, responsible for sanctioning infractions. Charity they should begin at home. Now, if the public get to know that there are agencies where you can make complaints and report and then get solutions solved, definitely they will start building that confidence in what we do. Like I mentioned before, during the COVID thing, agencies of security agencies that arrested some people who are not even guilty of the offenses and try to collect some money from them, were able to get their report here quickly. And they were paid these monies back and they were happy, shocked. And I tell you, some of them tried to even give our staff some thank you money and our staff say, no, this is what we are paid for. That sent signals to the public that so there are people like this who can say no when we give them monies for jobs they are doing. So the public out there should get to know, generally speaking, that it's not everything that anybody does for you that he must be paid for. There are certain things that people do. The thank you alone is a goodwill. So when we went to other states out to the public, what we did was to use the local vernacular to tell the public that these people are around and they are called Code of Conduct Bureau staff. If you have problems like this, so we try to itemize some of such common problems that they daily find themselves, especially like you say, the public, who are always mingling with security agencies and so on. People tend to believe that sometimes the police don't even need to ask you. You find a motorist coming, he's already prepared, and he calls it just thank you, I'm giving you for water on the road. But that in itself is not really good. The security person there, whoever, should be able to say, no, I'm doing this job and I'm paid for it. Please, can you go? Even if it's for one day, that the security agencies, for once, at least tell the public, today, tomorrow, like today, that is a World Anti-Corruption Day. We're not collecting a dime from anybody. If anybody gives you money, oh, thank you, today is World Anti-Corruption Day. That will start sending signals to the public, and we will grow and get over this. Then we need to also have friendly laws, because when you put difficult laws, the tendency to disobey them are there. We have seen certain issues like that. I keep taking examples of like even the road safety, for example, like this. You find a position where people are crossing the roads. Instead of building a flyover straight to where they are crossing, they will build a flyover very far. And the tendency for the public to stop here and check to the flyover is not there. You find them crossing the express, and we keep losing people. It's not just on the monetary aspect, other aspects of life. Our moral values that we have lost, we need to start bringing them up, and that is the essence of the CCB. To get people to understand that it's not just monetary that is corruption. No, there are so many things that we do. We abuse the leaderships, but we do in our own way too, small things that are tended to corruption. So in conclusion, I think actions or inactions of citizens should have consequences, and we must insist to punish what is wrong and praise what is good. Thank you.
Thank you. Siraj, welcome to the discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, we've been talking about where we are now, because I believe that maybe later on in the day, the discussion will be that how can we actually arrive at where we need to be in the post-pandemic era. But it's a fact that when the pandemic broke on this unsuspecting world, we were, at the beginning of the year, we were all assured that the country was fully prepared to meet the challenge. And that turned out not to be quite accurate. Now, it's been a reality, however, that we in Nigeria, and indeed in many other parts of Africa, have been much less impacted by the pandemic than other countries. And of course, we all thank God for that. But one of the results of that perhaps may be that people are fed up with the idea that we have a problem that we need to solve. And instead, they're sort of saying, well, since there's no problem, the money that is there, we should spend. What has Hedda been able to observe in this regard? And what have you been able to do in terms of publicizing and correcting any aberrant behavior?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the theme for the World Anti-Corruption Day for this year is actually speaking more to Nigeria than any other country I can actually think of. And good enough, this is Nigeria, so we should actually look at Nigeria. The question is, are we ever going to possibly recover with integrity? And if we're going to judge this by the indicators all across, we can say Nigeria is not even looking at any form of recovery, not to even talk of with integrity or otherwise. You have seen a situation where the pandemic has met us in complete abandoned health care system. And rather than taking advantage of this to prepare the country for not only just physical infrastructure in terms of health security for the people, we're not even really moving on around the issue of social security or health security. for the citizens. We can't see any standard hospitals that would look at the pandemic and then see how the citizens would even be secured from it other than the lockdown that we have seen. So for us at HEDA, we had the opportunity of conducting a survey that can tell the government what is the perception of people in terms of the quality of leadership. And that result came out to show that only about 17% of Nigerians trust the country, I mean the leadership at the federal and state level to actually do justice to the utilization of resources or even representation of their interests. For that, we monitored the distribution of palliative and also some of the policies that were formulated by government in terms of funding for the entrepreneurs, youth development schemes, and the rest of that. And the level of opacity that greeted some of those interventions are really, really astounding. The government officials have really not learned anything serious from not even the casualties that we suffered from that pandemic to even prick their conscience to the extent that they know that everything about the world is vanity and then do things differently and better. It was a sad development that the NSAS protest also exposed how you saw people stockpiling palliatives that would have assisted, the people to come out of the implication of the pandemic. And the last activity was for us to also come up with a policy that would assist government. I mean, because for us, it's not just about criticism. It's also to provide alternative and also a way forward. And we have just prepared a policy on social security for citizens that the government can adopt so that we can prepare ourselves for any form of either epidemic or pandemic. Ebola came, we really learned little, only possibly Lagos State was the only state that was fairly prepared for the pandemic, borrowing from the experience of the Ebola. Now, COVID-19 is likely to go, and we might not see any serious impact at the state and federal level.
Okay, thank you. Well, we only have a short time left. I would encourage those who have questions, however, to post them on the chat room or on the question and answer session if they have questions for the panelists. But I come back to you, Mr. Aliyu, because in a way, as we prepare to build back better, the role of public procurement is paramount. And we've all seen some of these reports that are being done by NGOs in terms of tracking what is being spent on what. I mean, just the other day, I was looking at pictures of they call them desks and chairs, and each one appeared to have been procured for 150,000 Naira. And I just found myself wondering, did this really pass through any form of control at all? And I wonder, do you feel that your bureau is positioned to make sure, as I said, that we wring every ounce of value from the money? I mean, this government is fond of saying we're doing more with less, but that may not be a very high bar or standard to have set themselves. And I wonder whether you feel that there are things that have been done to reverse or that can be done as we go forward to make sure that we don't suffer more than we are already suffering because of wastage of public funds. Mr. Aliyu, you need to unmute your microphone.
Yes, thank you very much for having me again. First of all, I didn't get all the questions. The 150, whether you can repeat that for me?
I was just saying that some things that look very ordinary and cheap are being purchased for very high sums, and that
yes, first of all, perhaps I have to give you the way procurements are set up. Procurement is set up first for efficiency and at the same time for controls. And this is always a balance. There's a balance. For low value thresholds, they are normally dealt with after as procurement audits. So we have a threshold which does not come to us, which the ministries, department, and agencies are expected to carry out and submit reports to us 3 months after the particular accounting year. So aside from the controls we have for the high value thresholds, which are usually called power review, you cannot do any procurement until we have concurred and said and issue an objection for it to continue. So for those ones, you cannot possibly incur expenditure until we have given you that concurrence. But for the low value ones, sometimes they come out to be a lot in numbers, broken into different districts. We normally expect the public to alert us, first of all, to it that, okay, such and such NDA is carrying out a procurement that we don't believe is correct. But even if they are not caught at that stage, we have what we call procurement audit, which we carry out, which are what we call post review, which at that point we can cross-check what has been done and apportion the relevant punishments that are due. At the moment, we have carried out procurement audit as far back as some projects done 3 years ago. We found out that the expenditures are not commensurate with the values that were derived, and they have been told that the funds will be recovered. And what we do, we normally report them to the necessary agencies that recover these funds, such as police, EFCC, and ICPC. So that is what the law expects us to do. And as I'm talking to you now, a lot of these reports, including those initiated by those bodies, are ongoing. So for your project, even though I didn't hear it properly, this you're bringing it to our notice through this forum is enough reporting that we will go and check if we don't already have anything on it. And that is how it works. So it's also important that we bring it to the public domain, how we function, so that while informing us, for us to do our work better, you also understand how you should inform us. And that is why we have the platforms such as Nocopo. As soon as things are uploaded, if you know it very well, it is not just left to us alone to monitor because it's our function, but also the public. And that is why we are setting up platforms such as Nocopo, so that the public will be the eyes and ears where we are not present. We are expected to be present, but then it is all of us. And within it, we have contractors engagement, citizens engagement. So far on the Nocopo, we have trained the civil societies, but most of the civil societies that are very, very active are in the cities, such as Abuja, Lagos, Kano, and what have you. So, and that is why we have the citizens engagement on the platform, which at the end of it, we should have a robust system of always picking some of these corrupt cases that could be missed, leaving it entirely to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I am. Our session is coming to an end. There may be some question and answer, so I will revert back to the facilitator, Mr. Yakubu, to conduct that if necessary. I would just like to round off by saying that one of the important things about a session like this is that it lets people know that despite the fact that bad news sells, the picture of hopelessness and inability to have any redress or to stem the tide of corruption, things may not be perfect. They're definitely not going to be perfect, but we shouldn't always necessarily continue to discourage ourselves by saying nothing has been done, things are as bad as ever, it's never going to change, and so on. We need to perhaps admit the possibility that things can improve, and then as citizens or governments or whatever role we play, we step up and do our part in saying yes, and things are improving, and I'm going to push it a little bit further, rather than saying nothing's getting better, I might as well just throw in the towel and join them. So Mr. Yakubu, the facilitator, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to participate in this important session. We all know that we have a lot of challenges as we come out of the COVID-19 pandemic. We haven't yet done so. And we probably have a lot as we try to reposition ourselves. But thank you very much for this session, for inviting me.
Thank you, too. You're welcome. I think to save some time, those that have questions should send them to me privately, or they could type them on the right-hand side, where I'll refer the questions to you much later on for proper response. Moving forward, because we're trying to keep the schedule, people are busy, is Mr. Arabi from the DG, Bureau of Public Service Reforms online? No, he's not. Okay, would like to take a goodwill message from Mrs. Amina Salihu from MacArthur Foundation. Is she online? Amina Salihu?
Yes, I am, moderator.
Okay, ma'am. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid to turn on my video because I fear the internet might just let me down. So you would have to forgive me and make do with my avatar,
No
which actually, yes, is all I can offer at this moment, but participating at this very important conversation. And also thank my sister Lillian Ekeayawu and team at the Interagency Tax Team for this very auspicious moment. My name is Amina Salihu. I work with the MacArthur Foundation, and I'm speaking on behalf of Dr. Kole Shetima, the Africa Director of the Foundation, and other colleagues. Part of our work in Nigeria for the last 5 years really has been supporting Nigerian-led efforts to reduce corruption. Because we recognize that, and I'm glad I heard my sister Ayobe talk about the fact that we need to affirm what is working and what is not, and to be able to do more. We recognize that it's important for us to understand those small gains that we have and to support them to be bigger gains. And second, to identify where we have champions of change, and again, to nurture their energy to be able to do more. We've always recognized that there is capacity in civil society. There's also capacity in government, and a collaboration between the two can help us achieve a whole lot more. And this is the way in which we have approached our work around supporting Nigerian-led efforts to reduce corruption. One of the grants that we have made through the Center for Democracy and Development and some other direct grants have been to strengthen our anti-corruption agencies to ensure that they're able to do more than the sum of their parts, and cooperation and collaboration is an important part of that. But I think also listening to colleagues here today, communication, it seems, is also a very important part of that. And I give an example of how we have learned this all-important lesson. The MacArthur Foundation supported the Presidential Advisory Committee for the past 5 or so years. And we recognize that the savings that PACAC has made upstream through reduction in grant corruption, that those savings have actually gone to provide meals for school children downstream. So being able to make that connection of the upstream and the downstream, we think is a very powerful way to tell the story of change that is happening in this country. Pay attention to those incremental steps so that we find the lesson in terms of what integrity means, speaking to the theme of this 9th December day. And we recognize that rather than talking about what does not work all the time or pointing fingers at those who are corrupt. It is even more important to elevate those who, despite the muck in the system, are doing better, are doing different. And recently, Step Up Nigeria actually made an award to teachers who are using storybooks to change the mindset of children at the primary school, at the secondary school level, media players who are using their platform also to drive change. And I think these Nigerians deserve support, and we need to see through their eyes or their lens in terms of what they see as possible for Nigeria. And I would say that as the MacArthur Foundation, we remain committed to continue to support Nigerian-led efforts to reduce corruption in ways that we understand, and also to continue to learn ways in which we can do much better. Thank you very much for the opportunity of this goodwill message, as we wish you a very successful conversation. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mrs. Amina Usman, for that concise statement. I think we'll just move on to the next panel discussion while I collate the questions for the first panel, because right now they are not coming. So, and the next discussion is on social reuse of returned assets, which is going to be chaired by Mr. Emmanuel Akomaye. And the panelists are Professor Musa Usman Abubakar, the Commission Secretary of the ICPC, Mrs. Ladidi Mohammed, who is ably represented by Mrs. Bumi, Dr. Oliver of the UNODC, and Ms. Umma Odi, civil society organization. In the meantime, before we start, we're going to play one of the secondary schools anti-corruption anthem that was developed by from the ICPC. Yeah. Thank you very much. That was the secondary school anti-corruption anthem that was by the ICPC. The secondary school was under the ICPC. The earlier one was secondary schools under the EFCC. So we will go to the next panel discussion, social reuse of return assets. Mr. Akomaye, sir, are you online?
Yes, I'm here. Okay,
sir, you have the floor. Your panelists, you have 4 panelists, Professor Musa Usman Abubakar, Ms. Bumi, who is representing Ms. Ladidi, Dr. Oliver, and Ms. Umma Odi, a civil society organization. Thank you. I'm going to time you, sir. You have 30 minutes, then we will leave 10 minutes for questions and answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues and stakeholders. We are having a conversation this afternoon on one of the key issues around the anti-corruption work. And taking a cue from earlier conversations, I will just say, our thoughts will revolve around how we will improve on what exists on ground concerning the return assets. It's very interesting that the theme of this year's Anti-Corruption Day is to recover with integrity, and that means recovering assets and also managing them with integrity. So Without a waste of time, I will just begin to have an interface with the panelists. And my first question will go to Professor Abubakar of the ICPC. Prof, how central is, generally, how central is asset recovery, particularly return assets in the anti-corruption framework?
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Let me start by expressing our deep appreciation for inviting the Commission to partake in this important panel of discussion on social reuse of recovered assets. Actually, asset recovery is central in the fight against corruption globally. There are many resolutions to that effect, which made focus is now much on asset recovery issues like I was talking about asset recovery. That asset recovery is central. The international community accepted it as one of the major tools of fighting corruption, and this includes issues like non-conviction based forfeiture of assets and what have you. Government realized that it is easier to go after the stolen assets than to actually go after conviction and getting the assets. So as far as the fight against corruption is concerned, asset recovery is really central in that respect. Our commission has really done well in that respect. We concentrated much on asset recovery more than we do with conviction. You discover that assets can be categorized generally into two. We may have repatriated stolen assets from abroad, and we also have assets recovered within the country. When we talk about the reuse of these resources, we are referring to using them for the benefit of the society in general, and to ensure that they are done in line with the Sustainable Development Agenda. In 2017, the UNODC had, in one occasion, a team, that is the International Expert Meeting on Management and Disposal of Recovered and Stolen, stolen assets, made it very clear that countries must take action to ensure that stolen assets are not wasted, that they should have proper budgets for that, budget planning. They must allocate some budget to carry out projects with the return, assets, and they must use the asset for social projects with high visibility. You discover that countries give us conditionalities. I remember a few years back, something like that happened when we were told, that whatever we received as repatriated asset should be given to the poorest of the poor, and the whole resources were a substantial part of the resources were shared among. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I will just come back to you. Let me turn the question. You said something a while ago about the issue of pursuing assets vigorously and at the same time having people sentenced to prison terms and all that. Let me turn the question now to Oliver. Oliver, Dr. Stolp, how do how do we balance this delicate issue of putting so much emphasis on asset recovery and also sending people to jail? What do we need to do to bring some harmony between the two? Oliver, please.
Well, it's a tricky question. I mean, obviously, both is needed. Action on both sides is needed, and anti-corruption agencies, as far as I can tell, have actually, especially the more mature ones like EFCC, ICPC, that with a strong enforcement mandate, I think have, reasonably well found an opportunity to strike the balance of pursuing, of course, the crimes, the offenses, but also going after the assets and making sure that the going after the assets is not only an afterthought, but that it is already an integral part of the investigation right from the beginning. And I think the establishment of specialized units or departments by now even that are responsible for carrying out this work has greatly helped, in addition, of course, to the traditional investigative and prosecutorial work. I think moving then to the issue of social reuse, I think there is still some room for improvement. I think at the moment we are seeing a little bit of a situation that is ad hoc-ish in a certain way. We know that the social reuse concept is actually a relatively new concept. It is only a few countries that have fully integrated it into their efforts, but those that have done have learned some lessons in the context of implementing them. Italy to start with. But I think the most important thing is about having a system, and I think the Proceeds of Crime Bill in earlier versions at least was trying to establish that system to make sure that essentially it showcases the change that these agencies are supposed to bring about. And I think we heard before somebody saying, there were many speakers that emphasized we shouldn't always focus on the negative, and that is a little bit difficult when you're dealing with criminal conduct, how to see the positive side. And this is exactly where we can showcase that positive side, how those assets stolen are turned into something positive, tangible, traceable, that can very transparently be seen by the population. And those countries that have been successful at establishing such systems do actually see the cultural change that is being induced and supported and facilitated through this kind of social reuse. So that's basically all I have to say on the issue so far.
Okay, thank you, Oliver. Okay, let me now turn to Bumi of Ministry of Justice. Oliver just spoke about the Proceeds of Crime Bill. In your understanding, are you seeing any legislative gap as we are having this conversation on return assets and their use? Bumi, please. Can Bumi hear me? Can Bumi hear me?
She's not online. I'll try to reach her, sir, and get back to you.
Okay, she's not. Okay, okay. So, I will turn back again to Professor Abubakar. What are you seeing in terms of the use of the return assets to fund safety net programs? How impactful have you seen that happened in the last couple of years with return proceeds of crime? Okay. Prof, please.
Yeah, I'm listening. As I started, I said, the reuse of, this return asset to benefit the society generally is expected to be something that will really benefit both this generation and the future generation. So that is what makes it, align with the Sustainable Development Agenda. The social safety net, as the moderator said, government, considered, identifying some vulnerable people in the society, and they were provided, with, support. To me, I mean, like the conditionalities given to the country some 2 years back, that this particular group of people should be considered. For me, it will not have that impact, as expected. I'm not saying it will not give any impact. What I expect is something that would sustain, that will be sustained for quite a long period. Building of roads, railway stations, and things like that, we will benefit, and other generations will benefit. Notwithstanding the fact that, I mean, other, the downtrodden will also be given maybe something out of the recovered asset. My major concern is, we do not really have a legal framework on how to utilize it. That is why we're getting all this. That is, recently, the United Nations, United States, sorry, agreed with the country to repatriate $308 million US, and they also gave us conditionalities. But to me, that conditionality is what I expect, that we should use the money for building roads, like, I mean, Kano, Abuja Road, Lagos Ibadan Expressway, Niger Bridge, second Niger Bridge, something like that. This, to me, is far more impactful on the society than mere, I mean, utilizing the resources for, just dashing people 5,000, 10,000 naira, as it was done some, maybe a year or two ago.
Thank you, Prof. The Prof seemed to have concerns with the funding of certain categories of safety nets, like the conditional cash transfers that the Abacha 2 return was used. He rather prefers the use of return assets for critical infrastructure like roads, railways, and so on and so forth. I will turn to, let me turn to Ms. Odi. Ms. Odi, what are your views in this? How do we balance the use of return assets for social safety nets for the poorest of the poor, and the investment of it on critical infrastructure? Do you agree with Prof, or you have a different opinion?
Hello. Good afternoon. I thank my two sisters, Jane and Lillian, for making me part of this conversation. And also, the theme of this year, togetherness, together, united against corruption, is also up. And also, what Tuga have done over the years is also agreeing with the theme of this year's Anti-Corruption Day, which is bringing all together to fight corruption and share our experiences and what we've done and the result we recorded. That's what I've been hearing since morning, and which is very, very good. So that brings me, and I must say congratulations to Tuga and to Lillian. That brings me to the question. And if we listen over for the past 5.5 years, people have been asking what has been done with the recovered, with what has been recovered, so far. People have been asking questions, and the concern of the citizenry actually is that to ensure that what has been recovered is not stolen again. So, and also another major concern relating to the question you asked this afternoon is the concern that because we do not have a data, and because we do not trust how do we know that this money being transferred are transferred to the poorest of the poor? When we were asking questions about finance minister and humanitarian minister telling us that palliatives have reached every corner of Nigerian society, we questioned it and said, yes, we didn't see all corners of Nigerian society getting this. And Tango, one of the achievements of the NSAS protest is that we discovered that these palliatives were kept, even given as birthday gifts by the political class. So, and then we were asking questions, and the COVID-19 have also exposed the weakness of our health sector and our economy. So now I think personally, I support what Prof said about transfer, because one, we are not sure of those who is getting the transfer, because it's embedded and rooted in corruption also. We don't have data to determine who gets what. And we all have also seen with the palliative that all the money given to, except few governors like Borno State Governor and another state governor, all that governor didn't distribute the palliatives. They started telling stories when the NSAS, Hoodrum took over the NSAS protest and now invaded the warehouses where the palliatives were stored. So with all the challenges of giving the state executives the palliatives and also transferring to people we do not know, it is better you invest it in the health sector, and having also coming to the fact that for the past 21 years we have had democracy, that Nigerian women also and children are dying as a result of very poor health system delivery and also poverty. So when we reconcile that people are dying as a result of the weakness of our health sector delivery, we need to invest more. And the COVID-19 exposed the fact that our healthcare sector is very weak, and we needed to do something about our healthcare sector. And I think we should invest this recovery route in a healthcare sector and in education to ensure that many people have education. We have so many people are dropped out of school, especially girl child. We need to invest in the education of the girl child and also road network to the things that we will have majority of Nigerians will see and identify with and say, yes, this is the very useful distribution of this recovered. And also we have to start talking about integrity in this recovery, because we have seen we recover, and not even the Abacha route recovered and also shared to poor people. The poor people, they know, we do not know. We also seen that other ones recovered by our agencies cannot be accountably listed. So we are, and the citizens, they are asking questions. If you have made so much money from JAM, if you have made so much money from customs and have recovered so much by EFCC, why is then that we are borrowing money every day from every available loan, let's say from China, from Europe, from America, even very soon we'll be borrowing from Ghana, and our debt profile keep on rising? Why do we recover so much and we are borrowing so much? We need to reconcile these questions, because why, if we borrow so much and recover so much, it means that we have not effectively and efficiently utilized the recovered resources. We need to actually start interrogating the recovered resources and what it has been used for. And by that, I now support the ICP. I fight for the poorest of the poor, but I know that with the way the transfer is being done, it's not reaching the poorest of the poor, knowing that the political elites and class is rooted in corruption. And I see what has happened off the mark, and all that in a National Assembly. We do not trust that it will end up in the hands of the political class colonies, and we do not want it. We want it to end up in the hands, but before we have a comprehensive data on all the citizens, especially the poor, we need to use this money for health sector, for the economy, and for the road network, and to education, and ensure that out of school children, especially the girl child, is in school, and make sure that the maternal mortality rate that is highest in Africa and second to India that has over 1 billion population is reduced. This is 21 years after with democracy, and we have not reduced maternal mortality rate. It is not going well for us. I am celebrating what I heard today, what the Human Rights Commission have done, what EFCC has done, especially what ICPC have done. They just released a report that the corruption is highest in the judiciary. I am proud of ICPC. We need to translate all these outcomes, all these beautiful results to the reduction of corruption in Nigerian society. And when we reduce corruption in Nigerian society, we will see the reduction in educational sector, in the health sector. We will see it in a good road network. We will see it in the having all the facilities. We need to say, yes, we are in democracy. And now we can touch the trend, only trend functioning in Nigeria. Abuja to Kaduna has collapsed. And we can invest this money in the railway network. And
thank you, Ms. Odi. Let me come back to you shortly. Thank you very much. Now you
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
Yes, sorry to interrupt. I'd just like to some slight modification. Mr. Yusuf Aliu, the Director of Asset Recovery of the EFCC, he's supposed to be on this panel, so you can engage him. And Ms. Chisom of the Federal Ministry of Justice is also online. So you can extend your time by, say, 20 minutes to engage them both. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Thank you. So, okay, Ms. Odi raised a critical issue of integrity on the use of return assets. And I think one of the challenges which continue to trouble us is the integrity of existing data on even the return assets, their use, their disposal, and all that. Now that Bume is here, let me turn the question to her. In your mind, what sort of framework, centralized or decentralized, that will help with this process of having an integrity in managing our assets that have been recovered and returned? Bume, please.
Sorry, Mr. Moderator, it's Chisom who is here. Chisom, please, you have the floor.
Okay. Is Chisom there, please?
She's not there. I'll try and reach her again. We could proceed with Mr. Aliu, sir.
Okay. Oliver, I will very kindly turn this question to you to help us with your thoughts on what framework. Is it a centralized framework or a decentralized framework? Because issues of integrity keep popping up on this issue. And we don't seem to have a standardized framework as we speak. Like Prof from ICPC said, we are still having issues with proper legal framework. Oliver, what do you think in terms of the model of framework that will help to address issues of integrity?
Yeah, thank you so much, Emmanuel. And I have to say I'm very interested and intrigued by some of the views that were expressed, because I, for once, having watched some of the documentaries and interacted with the people directly responsible for the cash transfer program, actually was left with a relatively positive impression in terms of that program actually achieving what it was set out to achieve. Now, that doesn't mean that one cannot, agree or disagree on whether that's the most effective way of helping the poor, or there might be others. But in terms of like the checks and balances that were in place, the integrity checks that were in place, also the regular monitoring, it seemed, in comparison to other programs that we have seen being funded from recovered assets, actually quite well put together on a comparative basis. But obviously the big issue is, and I fully agree with Prof, we don't have a legal framework, we don't have an institutional framework that essentially ensures the disposal of these assets in a systematic way. I think there needs obviously to be some policy discussion, and then that policy discussion leading to law. First of all, what should these assets actually benefit? Is it very generically the sustainable development goals? Should it be even more broadly essentially left up to the usual budgetary process? Or should it be more curtailed, so to speak, in the use? The other thing is the accounting part. You will remember that that was one of the challenges, I think, under Abacha 1, that it was what was possible was to determine that the projects that originally had been selected to be funded or to be benefiting from that return did, in parts at least, turn out to not have really been implemented fully, or maybe in some cases not at all. But it was very difficult to actually trace of why that was the case. Was the money actually given to the projects and not spent properly, or was the money diverted at earlier stages, or were they simply basically changing priorities? And there might have been absolutely logical explanation, but it seemed very difficult after the fact to actually establish of where the money had gone. I'm talking about Budget 1. Budget 2, as far as I can tell, is the situation is slightly better. And at Budget 3, I guess for now it's actually too early to say, because if I'm not mistaken, the distribution is just starting literally. But in any case, I think that the disadvantage, and we can already see we have not a system. We had one approach for Abacha 1, another approach for Abacha 2, another approach for Abacha 3. We had the Jersey return where nobody knows where the money went. So I think a system, having a system in place, first of all, a law, secondly, a relatively transparent, also including civil society process that would determine the purposes and then also monitor the implementation of these kind of projects would definitely be desirable. And I think there are some encouraging examples that we should study to learn from both the good and maybe the not so good. But I'm very confident that this can be addressed, and I'm also have the strong sense that the legislator, just speaking on it on Tuesday, on Monday, is very committed to get the proceeds of crime bill through, and hopefully, of course, that will address these issues, including, one last point that has been an ongoing discussion, including the question to what extent actually the law enforcement agencies that are engaging in asset recovery, ICPC, EFCC, but also the others, should actually to some extent be capable of, so to speak, benefiting from the recovered assets. And there are some problematic issues, but if there's an arm's length principle that can be implemented, then that is definitely something worthwhile considering. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. Okay, I now switch the question to our colleague from EFCC. I hope he's online now. The question still remains. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the framework on asset recovery and disposal? And number two, do you think we should use recovered assets or return assets to fund anti-corruption work, and to what extent? Yes, please, colleague from EFCC.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. May I first of all, thank the organizers for, giving us this platform to speak on this event. The theme of this, the discussion is social reuse on, of return assets, and the question is my thought on the legal framework. As we all know, the legal framework for asset recovery and use is fragmented. Every agency has its own provisions in their laws. On this now is fragmented, and that is why the process of crime bill is before the National Assembly to try to harmonize, these laws. Coming to the issue of social reuse, we are all aware that in some other countries, countries like the Philippines and in Italy, recovered assets have been used for, projects that impacts on the ordinary people, agrarian reform projects and all that. In Nigeria, we don't have a legal framework. What we have is most times, policy statements on what to do with this asset. Example is the Abacha 1, the Abacha 2 that Mr. Oliver referred to. The investment of these monies on certain social investment programs, the Empower programs and all that. Well, in EFCC, there are recent policies, concerning assets that we have recovered in EFCC, that have semblance of social reuse. For instance, some properties, that we have recovered, the government has a policy of allowing some of these government agencies that have a problem with accommodation, office accommodation issues, to use some of them. And we have actually, given some of these properties to agencies to use as offices. I can mention some of them: Voice of Nigeria, Northeast Development Commission, Humanitarian Affairs, Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and all that. So we have given out some of these properties, forfeited properties, to some of these agencies, for use as office accommodation. And the ones that are even under interim forfeiture, that the court have directed that we can appoint managers to manage. Some agencies have also approached us, and some of them, are renting. But the issue still remains the issue of the legal framework, because the question is, these assets that have been given out to government agencies, what is the legal backing for some of these, decisions, apart from the policy statements of government? I will look at the legal framework available, the EFCC Act, Section 31, Subsection 2 of the EFCL, that gives the Secretary of the Commission the powers to dispose of, forfeited assets, or otherwise deal with the asset. This otherwise, some have interpreted it that the government might decide to use it for any other purpose without necessarily disposing of the asset. Then, of course, there is the Executive Order number 6 on preservation of suspicious assets connected with corruption and other offenses. And this one gives the powers to the Attorney General of the Federation to take steps and to enlist the support of anti-corruption agencies in managing, such assets. And through this, I think the government can also decide on what to do with forfeited assets. Then again, there is the Asset Tracing, Recovery and Management Regulation of 2018, which is now gazetted, made by the Office of the Attorney General. So these are the legal, framework. But by and large, I think, in my own opinion, if governments really want to use these assets for the use of, in a way, in a manner that will be seen by Nigerians to be transparent, perhaps there is need for legal framework, a robust legal framework Perhaps there could be provisions in the POCA bill that is presently pending at the National Assembly, on social reuse of forfeited assets, maybe so that the public confidence will be assured. That is my thought, on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I'll turn Mr. Omar. I hope we still have a few minutes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You have. You do.
Okay. Okay. The next thing I will. The next question I will want the thought of the panelists is the return assets, some of them which concern the subnational entities, the satellite states. While the federal government may have its framework in the use of return assets at the federal level, there is still yet another issue as to how, when assets are recovered and returned and they consign the subnational states, what will be the approach to monitoring? Again, the argument which usually revolves around the whole issue of my authority to utilize what belongs to me normally would play out. But I do know that some of these return assets also go to the states. How do we deal with those to ensure the integrity and transparency which we've spoken about so much? Prof from ICPC, can you speak to that, please?
Yeah. Okay, thank you once again. And I really thank these last two speakers who actually shed more light on some of these issues, particularly this issue of absence of a legal framework. To me, return assets belonging to subnational entities is just like, the asset belonging to the federal government. They do not have, legal framework generally. If we have legal framework at the national level, because it is national government that deals with, foreign relations and what have you, I expect that with the legal framework, a robust legal framework we are talking about, we can actually incorporate how return assets belonging to other agencies or entities, will be treated. At our level, we do that. Sometimes we recover assets locally here from some kleptocrats, and at the end of the day, we identify the beneficiaries. Maybe if it is a state government, we pass that asset to states, and if there are individuals, we also do the same. So I believe the legal framework at the federal level should have a provision there that will determine how returned assets belonging to federated units should be dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Oliver, I want you to make a comment on that issue also. What are your thoughts on the issue of assets being returned to satellite states?
Well, you mean to subnational level when you say satellite states?
Yes, subnational level, the states.
Well, obviously there's no international framework that is sort of specifying that, but it seems to me if we're just looking at the principles that are being established by the UN Convention Against Corruption of who should be receiving, so to speak, back the money, we could probably apply the same principles in the context of the subnational level, meaning that essentially the place from where the asset stems should be the primary recipient of those assets, as it is affecting the people of that place most directly and immediately. And then there might be some caveats, so to speak, if there was involvement of the respective administration in the dissipation of the assets in the first place. So maybe we could apply those same principles.
Yes, I raised that issue because, as you well know, there have always been concerns as to the use of return assets, particularly the components that are returned to states from where probably the assets were initially taken. We have seen it in the past in respect of cases like Darie and DSP and so on and so forth. Yet another question which our colleague from Justice, is he here now or not yet? Moderator,
yes.
Is he here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Could you kindly speak to some of the concerns that have revolved around the issue of remuneration of experts that have been engaged to deal with return assets? There have been questions around that as to the propriety of certain percentages that are being paid to experts, or questions as to whether government really needs to engage them at a certain stage of the recovery or return process. Could you speak to us on that?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Good afternoon. This is Chisom on the line from the Office of the Honorable Attorney General. On the issue of consultants being engaged by the Attorney General, the recovery agent comes with their specifics to be engaged. The Attorney General checks, the Office of the AG checks and review their proposal being submitted. They review the proposal being submitted. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. They review the proposal being submitted at the Office of the Honorable Attorney General. And if they see a merit in the proposal being submitted, they will be engaged for a specific period. And also the success fee after the recovery has been done will be put into the letter as well. I heard when Dr. Stope was speaking, he talked about that there was no clear view as regards to Abacha 3. I want to inform that there was a repatriation of the sum of $311,797,876.11 from the island of Jersey and the US on the 1st May 2020, which was confirmed by the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Office of the Accountant General, which is known as the Abacha 3. There's also a repatriation, also known as the Abacha 4, from the Republic of the Northern Ireland in the sum of €5,494,753, which was repatriated on the 2nd of October 2020 and confirmed by the Central Bank. These funds were, as agreed at the agreement signed by the parties, the governments involved, was scheduled to be used to benefit all the geopolitical zones in Nigeria and was mapped out for these 3 projects: the Legon-Ibadan Expressway, the second Niger Bridge, the Abuja-Kano Expressway, as well as the Abacha 4, which was returned from the Republic of the Northern Ireland. As for the consultants being engaged for these projects, in the engagement letter, the success fee is being included there. And once the money is being repatriated and the funds have been confirmed by both the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Accountant General, they apply and we confirm. After the confirmation, this fee are being paid. So it's something that is contained in the letter of engagement. Also, when the person from the EFCC was speaking, they were talking about integrity and also framework. The Assets Tracing and Recovery and Management Regulation of the 2019 and also Guideline on Anti-Corruption was issued by the Honorable Attorney General in 2019, which contains some process and also synergy between all ministry, departments, and agency on disposal and as well as management of assets, which is being used by even the inaugurated Interministerial Committee on Disposal of Assets.
Thank you, Bumi. Okay, the last point, the Interministerial Committee, which you just mentioned, I guess works with the frontline anti-corruption agencies. And
yes, the prosecuting agencies.
If that is the case, how do we stand with the credibility or otherwise of the data on assets recovered? Because there's so much concerns around that area. I think a couple of comments were made on that before you joined us. The issue of the credibility of data and the use of what has been returned and what specifically they have been used for and all that. So what effort is your office probably making to ensure that we have reliable data, particularly now that you have an interface with the frontline anti-corruption agencies, even though we still do not have a robust legal framework, as many speakers have already said. Thank you.
Thank you. On the 17th September 2020, the Honorable Attorney General launched the central database for the collection of all database from all ministries, departments, and agencies. And after the launch, the Office of the Honorable Attorney General sent out letters where the consultants with officers from the Honorable Attorney General's chambers set out to interact with other agencies, see what they have, show them what they have launched, and also collect from them what they have. A lot of agencies have started complying. The EFCC, the ICPC, the Civil Defense all have sent in their database with their specific and what they are doing. And the Office of the AG is still collecting data and which is being imputed. That anyone, any of the agencies, the MDAs can have access to them, view whatever they have posted on the central database, which is still ongoing.
That's quite commendable, and we do hope that will help address the issue of data, which has remained a challenge. And on the issue of Bumi, kindly stay with me because you came last. That is why I'm engaging you. On the issue of the monitoring and of the utilization of return assets, you do know that requested states have often insisted on monitoring the use, and sometimes we have domestically expressed concerns raising issues of sovereignty. What else do you think needs to be done to give confidence, not only to the requested states, but to all partners and partners like STAR and other agencies that help in the recovery and return process?
Thank you. I feel transparency is very important. Also, we could recall in Doha Declaration of 2019, well, the Nigeria and other state parties also informed and requested for removal of the conditionality being attached with repatriation of assets or utilization of assets, as the case may be. Going forward, With regards to utilization of these assets and monitoring of the assets, most of the MOU entered by countries or state parties with regards to return of assets, some of them are being reached in this agreement. And once these funds are returned, the monitoring of all these assets will include the civil society organization and also experts from other countries, which was already agreed in the agreement being signed by the two parties or two states or two governments, as the case may be. But whatever it is, we keep on clamoring for transparency, accountability, integrity when it comes to, and also for the press to inform the public and the citizen, engagement of the citizen as well, on how these funds or the assets are being utilized at whatever level, be it at the national level, at the sub-national level, and as the case may be.
Thank you, Bumi. I think my last question will go to Ms. Odi and probably Prof from ICPC. Asset recovery and return, or the process of return assets, is the government has identified that as a major revenue stream to fund budgets. And we are all aware that budget deficits, particularly in this pandemic era, has become a big challenge. What are your thoughts in terms of the appropriateness or otherwise of using return assets as a major revenue stream to fund social development, the sustainable development goals?
That's what Nigeria has been clamoring for. Instead of taking debt, and our debt profile is already very high, Nigerian citizens have been clamoring for a government to fund this budget from recovered resources. It is a good step in the right direction, and that's what we want to see. We want to see government plugging back the money recovered from our stolen Commonwealth back to the development of the society, and also ensuring that the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals are achieved, because there is no way Nigerian government can achieve the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal without actually having its own resources than borrowing money from outside, that they use more than half of the budget to actually pay on the borrowed resources. So I am saying that what the government has decided to do is the right step in the right direction, to use recovered funds to fund our budget. And also, I just want to say something about the last issue discussed. I just want to say that the data I'm talking about is having a comprehensive data on the poorest of the poor in Nigeria. I'm not talking about the activities of the anti-corruption agencies that are doing more than enough already. I am talking about having a data, and earlier the government, we needed to have done it since yesterday. We have a comprehensive data of all the poor people in Nigeria, because the poverty level keep on increasing. And if what we are doing is impacting positively, we should have started seeing results. If the Abacha route works and first and second worked, we would have started seeing pockets of positive results. And if the poverty level and corruption level is still going high, then it has not worked. And they need, and we know that in the third world country, especially in Nigeria, you might have a very good policy. We have very good laws, but in the implementation has always been the challenge. And the citizens have a lot to do to ensure that the policies and the policies and the laws of the country actually fight corruption, because we track these projects, we monitor this fight, and we see there are loopholes. Even with the best of laws and policies, then the need for citizens to be part of this fight against corruption. ICPC and EFCC have done a lot, bringing even school peoples and students into the fight. But we need to have a commitment bigger than what we have. And we need to, I'm encouraging government, and all of us must encourage government to use, I am happy, and I had it before and I was happy, that the last recovered route will be used for development projects. And we have to track and ensure that the money is channeled and we have value for our money in the right direction. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes, sir,
Okay.
I can hear you, sir.
Okay, maybe it's from Ms. Odi's end.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes, Prof, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Ms. Odi was making a very important point there. Yes, funding social services or social programs with return loops is very important, although you had favored the use for critical infrastructure. The question now will be, in the absence of a credible database, what will be our advice to government in the funding social safety net through programs like cash transfers and school feeding and the rest?
Well, I think okay.
Yes.
Our advice.
Do we suspend the funding of such programs in preference to critical infrastructure, or what do we do in the interim until we have credible data?
I was actually I wasn't saying that social safety nets, helping the poor should not be our concern. I was only saying that we should really prioritize the creation of this infrastructure, but at the same time taking into consideration the poorest of the poor. So the fact that there is no credible data, which I still believe the Federal Minister of Justice is handling. I know they have a sort of a central database where all the agencies now report their recoveries. So the data is there. But the other side is monitoring of the palliatives and other things must be enhanced if we want to use these resources for such support, like conditional cash transfers and what have you. So proper monitoring is something that should be enhanced. Thank you.
Thank you. Moderator?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can now take questions from across the listeners so that the panelists can also address them.
Yes, sir. There's a question by Dr. Oliver. He typed it that congratulations to the FMOJ for establishing a database. Are there any plans to make the database in parts or in full publicly available?
So, Bumi, can you help us answer that?
Thank you, Dr. Stope. While collation and imputing is ongoing from all MDAs, the central database is for collection of data real time and is available for relevant MDAs who has as well put in their informations, but we cannot expose informations that are interim to the general public. Thank you. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, Bumi, probably what Oliver meant was not to turn the entire data to the public on real-time basis. I think our conversation revolves around assets that have been ascertained to have been returned and are available for you. Your database, will it also contain information as to what has really come in, what is being used, where and how? Will it also capture such details? And if such details, which are not sensitive anymore in terms of additional work to be done on recovered assets, can be made available to the public.
For the return assets, you can go to the Ministry of Justice website, it's available there. Also, the Nigeria Sovereignty Investment Authority is also available on their website, bearing in mind that they're managing this asset for the 3 projects that was proposed. The returned assets is available for the public to view. After all, they were all in the news after it was being returned, because there was a press conference, press publication from the Office of the Honorable Attorney General. You can also visit the website of the Federal Ministry of Justice for more information on the returned assets. So it's available to the public. Also, the projects are ongoing. We also got feedback that people passed there and saw that the project was ongoing. So it's really available to the public as in relation to the return assets. But for assets which are interim, that will not be available to the public, pending when we get the final forfeitures as regards to those assets. Thank you.
Oliver, does that answer your question? Hi, Oliver.
Sorry, I'm struggling with the microphone. Thank you very much. Yes, it does answer the question. And yes, of course, I mean, I think the interest of the public would be with regard to sort of like final numbers, both of domestic and international recoveries. And I think, you know, whatever can be made available is probably a useful measure in order to instill the transparency that I think was mentioned many times during this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. Yes, Mr. Omar.
Yes, sir. I think that's the only relevant question for this panel. The other question I can see has already been answered in the discussion. It's about an asset recovery register. I think that has been adequately dealt with. So thank you, sir.
So, okay, we can take last comments from the panelists if there are no further questions from members viewing this program. Is that right, Mr. Omar?
Yes, sir, it's okay.
Yes. Okay. Ms. Odi, what are your last comments concerning a very interesting and topical issue on anti-corruption, the use of return assets? Can we have your last thoughts on this? Just 30 seconds. Is she there or she's gone?
Yeah, she's there, but she has not unmuted her speaker.
Okay. Ms. Odi, can you unmute?
Yeah, no, speak, please.
Okay, my last thoughts on this is that this wonderful seminar has provided another opportunity, as we have all the agencies here and institutions, for us to have a comprehensive data on the poorest of the poor, our own data, that we can start and have it, so that when we are talking about lifting people out of poverty, we will know what we are talking about. And also we need to ensure that we have an economy that is not in recession, because many people are dying in poverty because of the recession we have entered. We knew what we went through in year 2016 before government actually put us out of recession. And thirdly, for me, that ensuring that we meet 2030 sustainable development goal is something all of us must do, the agencies and the civil society by ensuring that we reduce corruption to the barest minimum and ensuring that all hands on decks to kill corruption and to ensure that recovered resources are channeled for the benefit of citizenry and the society. Thank you.
Of EFCC, your last thoughts, particularly on the theme, the general theme, recover with integrity. What message will you leave with us? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. The chairman. May I first of all comment on the issue of return of assets to states where these monies were actually, return assets were actually stolen. My thought on that is that states must cooperate in the course of investigation and prosecution, with anti-corruption agencies, because in most cases, states will tell you they did not lose money. But after you recover, they now come forward and say, oh, that money belongs to us. A typical example is the Ibori, case. So state must indicate interest, especially in the course of investigation and in the course of prosecution of some of these cases. Then on the issue of utilization of this, the most important is that government must make sure that the citizen knows what is really happening. There must be information. The civil society organizations must be given a role to play in monitoring the use of this asset. And then there must be free flow of information as to what is happening. Because as it is now, members of the public are not really aware of what the government is doing. For instance, recovered assets that are channeled through the budget. Most times, people are asking, what did you do with the money? Whereas the money paid into consolidated revenue funds and have been used to finance, the budget. So the government needs to ensure that there is information, the people are aware of what is going on. Thank you very much.
May I turn to Prof of ICPC? Your last thoughts.
Okay. My last thought is actually in addition to what the two speakers said, is that we should really have a very strong sanction for those found to be reluting what was already recovered, because that is the major concern of most countries when they want to repatriate assets. And that our country should also consider the recommendations of the report of the International Expert Meeting on Management and Disposal of Recovered and Stolen Assets, which was held from the 14th and 16th of February 2017. And among the advice recommendation given is that each country should develop a transparency platform and inform the public how funds are used, and also ensure trust in government institutions. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Platform for transparency. I think probably that is what the Ministry of Justice is trying to do. Oliver, can you just give us your last thoughts? What can we do to again create greater confidence with partners across the globe, particularly those who are helping Nigeria to recover and return assets, organizations such as yours, such as the STAR Initiative and a whole host of others? What do you think we need to do domestically to engender confidence in partners?
Thank you so much. And maybe before going specifically on your question, I think I really want to emphasize that actually, to be very blunt, there would be no asset recovery if it wasn't for Nigeria. The chapter on asset recovery in the UN Convention Against Corruption was essentially drafted in its original forms by Nigerian legal experts. Of course, Nigeria has since then, more than any other African country, I think more than any other country actually, full stop, been successful in recovering assets. And I think also more recently still has been at the forefront of influencing the policy. One very specific point was that resolution that was adopted and sponsored by Nigeria at the last Conference of States Parties of the UN Convention Against Corruption, which very specifically established that link between asset recovery and the SDGs, meaning that recovered assets should support the implementation and the achievements of the SDGs, which I think is exactly what is required in order to further enhance the effectiveness and achieve the collaboration of other countries. That commitment to use the funds for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, I think, will go a long way. It will not resolve all the issues right away, but it will certainly go a long way. And I think there is probably more space in concretizing these kind of commitments that would help. And I think the Proceeds of Crime Act, if passed, could make another important contributions. Last, I think the good practices that are emerging, not only in the area of recovery, thanks to the hard work of the colleagues in EFCC and ICPC in particular, but also the other law enforcement agencies, and of course on the policy side by the Federal Ministry of Justice, which is absolutely incredible and very much welcome, in particular the establishment of the database that was mentioned before. I think all of these steps will help to further instill cooperation, collaboration, confidence, and ultimately the trust that is needed. And very concretely speaking, and I would like, this is not my idea, this was an idea that was flagged by Nigeria many, many years ago, but at that stage it was not pursued. I think it is time for Nigeria to consider whether it would like to host the next iteration of the Global Forum on Asset Recovery and bring that conversation to Nigeria, to West Africa, and to the African continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Bumi, as you have informed us, the AG appears to be doing a whole lot to bring transparency to the issue we are having a conversation on. And the platform which you have just launched, we do hope that you will work aggressively with the frontline anti-corruption agencies so that they can populate the data in a manner that the public, you'll be able to generate information that the public will have greater confidence. Is there any other thing that in your thoughts you think needs to happen with the anti-corruption agencies to make even what you have initiated even more robust?
Thank you. I feel what we need is more synergy, collaboration between all LEAs, ACAs, anti-corruption agencies, law enforcement agencies to achieve the same goal. Just more collaboration, more synergy. You know, that's all I feel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I must sincerely thank the panelists for a very useful and robust conversation on a topic that is very important segment in the anti-corruption framework. It's really been a pleasure and a privilege to sit here to moderate this session. And to the organizers, Tuga.
We have two questions, sir. Sorry, two more questions.
Oh, there are two questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Can we take them?
Yeah, quickly. There's one from Dr. Nelson Aluya. He sent this message from the United States. How can the anti-corruption agencies engage those in diaspora in the monitoring of illicit financial flows and other money laundering activities?
Well, I turn that questions to the two anti-corruption agencies,
Yes.
the EFCC and ICPC. Mr. Liu, how do you use people in the diaspora to enhance your work?
Thank you very much. I think it's a very good suggestion. The EFCC is already working with Nigerian in diaspora, commission to work out the modalities, for some of these. In fact, this issue has, come up, several times. Meetings with the diaspora, commission, and I'm sure that, as time goes on, we are going to perfect, ways and manners, that the people in diaspora can assist the commission, can work together in this direction.
Anything from the ICPC?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. At our own end, I believe, it is, citizens, duty, as it is their duty as citizens of Nigeria to really support the anti-corruption agencies in tracking the things. So the commission will be ever ready to receive information from anybody in the diaspora, and we can pursue it, to the letter. Yes, thank you very much.
The second question?
He has not typed it, so we can conclude, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I was at the verge of thanking the organizers of the 2020 Anti-Corruption Day, TUGA, and express my gratitude to all the participants. It was a privilege with you. I believe and trust that we have all learned from this conversation and the suggestions that have been put forward. I do hope that partners will do something about them to strengthen the asset recovery program and the use of the assets in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Mr. Omar. I turn over to you.
Thank you very much. This was a very interesting panel. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and all the other panelists. I think we're rounding up very soon, so I'll call on Madam Lillian to give the closing remarks for this International Anti-Corruption Day 2020. Madam Lillian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yakubu. Before I give my very brief closing remarks, can I request our IT guru, Shegu, to please put up the pictures of how the agencies celebrated the day in their various offices as requested. Shegu, please, can you put up the pictures? We had requested the agencies to take pictures of how they are celebrating the day and post it. Yes. This is, which I think this is Central Bank of Nigeria celebrating the Anti-Corruption Day. This is another agency I'm trying to identify. Sorry? Yes, this is another agency also celebrating. This is us and Nati and Tuga celebrating. This is EFCC. You can see their logo. These are school children from one of the schools being mentored by ICPC and EFCC. Yes, this is also, this is the Bureau of Public Procurement celebrating the Anti-Corruption Day. And this is the Fiscal Responsibility Commission standing in with us. Yes, this is all we have received at the moment. We expect more pictures to come from the agencies, and as the pictures come, we will upload them on the website and also circulate for people to view. I think I would now do my vote of thanks. I want to warmly thank, I'll start by thanking the members of the organizing committee for this event. It has been very challenging because this is the first time we're having the Anti-Corruption Day event in this format. So it was a learning curve for all of us. I want to thank the members of the committee from all the agencies who participated. I also want to thank the heads of agencies of the IATT for all their cooperation and the way they supported us. I want to thank our able facilitator who has been with us since yesterday, Mr. Omar Yakubu. I want to thank all our panelists, some of whom we had to drag out from other engagements. Mr. Emmanuel Akomoye, Ms. Ayo Obe, the ones who chaired the panels, Ms. Maodi, Mr. Suraj, Olarewaju, and the numerous other panelists who participated. In particular, I want to also thank our development partners for their support and goodwill. ROLAC, the UNODC, CDD, MacArthur Foundation, for all the support they have given us over the years and also for this particular event. I want to thank my colleagues from all the agencies for how we have all come together. Dr. Oliver Stolpe has given us a lot of time and other material support in this process. I want to thank you especially for that. And there are, maybe unknown to us, some of our elders who have been part of this fight in the past, but joined us from across the world. I don't know if he's still online. Mr. Maegu, who is currently in the US, and all of us in the anti-corruption community know the role he played, especially in the asset recovery chapter of the ONCAC. He has been with us, sending in comments, scolding us when it is necessary, and making supportive comments all along the line. I want to thank him for finding the time to join us. So I can go on and on. All our IATT members, thank you very much for all the support. The civil society organizations who have joined us, we are grateful. And I wish all of us, Dr. Arabi of BPSR, thank you very much for being with us. And because of technology, we were unable to benefit from your goodwill message, but I'm sure there will be other opportunities. I want to wish all of us a very good celebration, and let the celebrations continue. And for those of us who can log in this evening as we launch the port sector process manual, please join us at 5 virtually. Thank you very much, and have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. God bless. I will hope to see you next year. All right.